Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. Today we will see what if Naruto was the prince of Underworld. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. Two teenage boys were facing off in a place called the Valley of the End. This place was the final battle site of the first Hokage, the founder of Konoha, and Madara Uchiha, leader of the Uchiha clan. The two boys were Naruto Uzumaki, who was in his one-tailed form, and Sasuke Uchiha, who was in his Curse Seal Level 2 form. Both boys were using malevolent powers, but for a purpose. Sasuke Uchiha was using his power to gain a greater power and finally avenge his family by killing his older brother, Itachi Uchiha. That one man, in one night, literally obliterated the clan. He was going to kill Naruto to gain the ultimate power of his clan's power, the Mangekyo Sharingan. To gain the twisted power of the Sharingan, one has to lose something very precious to them. Naruto, however, was using the dark power sealed within him to bring back his best friend to the village, back to Sakura Haruno. She was the girl he loved, but she loved Sasuke for some reason. He would bring back the last Uchiha for her. He would even use Kyuubi, the nine-tailed fox, the bane of his existence, to bring him back. For you see, Naruto was supposed to be seen as a hero for keeping the evil fox at bay. But he is seen as the Kyuubi itself, and so, he is hated by all but the younger generation. Naruto saw Sasuke as his brother, because while he was at the bottom of the ninja class and an orphan, Sasuke was at the top, and the Uchiha was the first person of the younger generation to accept him. So, he would bring him back no matter what. I am not going back, Naruto. That place is only holding me back. I need to get enough power to beat him, Sasuke said as he flapped his giant hand like wings, while activating his best jutsu, the Chidori, a weaker version of the lightning blade. It was also black because of the evil chakra he was using. I will take you back no matter what, even if I got to break every bone in your body, Naruto yelled as the tail of the fox cloak swished behind him. He brought his hand to the side and a ball of energy swirled onto it. The Rasengan, normally blue thanks to human chakra, was now purple because of the mixing of human and demonic energies. The two were at the bottom of a waterfall that had the statues of the two who once battled here. Sasuke was at Madara's feet while Naruto was the first Hokage's feet. With an unspoken word, the two flung into the air at each other, their attacks colliding. Chidori, Rasengan, the energies combined around the two 13-year-old boys, creating a large sphere of purple energy around them. Then there was a flash of light, as if there was an explosion of pure power, and now Naruto was knocked out on the ground while Sasuke was standing above the boy. I am still better than you, Sasuke said as he walked away in the nearby forest. He would not kill Naruto, because then he would be just like Itachi. A few minutes, the rain began to pour down. The seal that held the evil Kyuubi glowed brightly through Naruto's clothes on his stomach. Then in another flash of light, the one who sealed that terrible beast inside Naruto appeared next to the blonde-haired ninja, the fourth Hokage himself. The two looked almost alike, except for the whisker marks on Naruto's cheeks. The fourth looked at Naruto sadly and said, "I'm sorry my son, I should have never sealed Kyuubi into you. I should have just let the village be destroyed by the beast." The fourth Hokage then got down to his knees and put a hand on Naruto's seal, and slowly a ball of crimson-red energy with the seal surrounding it came out. "It is time I take you to your true home," he said after he pocketed the ball of energy and held up Naruto's unconscious body, bridal style. That is when Kakashi, Naruto's sensei and the fourth's old student, came on the scene. The Jonin's lone eye widened to that of a dish plate. "S-sensei? Minato-sensei? Oh hello Kakashi," Minato said as he leveled a glare at the one-eyed man. "Sorry to say, but I am not truly here. When I sealed the Kyuubi into Naruto, I sealed part of my soul as well. Oh, and just so you know, I saw everything." This one statement made the Jonin pale and start sweating. "I saw how the villagers ignored Naruto when he was just a child. They overpriced everything he bought. The academy held him back not for being stupid, they caused that, but because of the fact that they hated Naruto. No one gave him a chance, and when he got onto your team, you turned your back on him and the girl to train only the Uchiha. You were just like the villager. At least the third Hokage helped him when he could without that damn council interfering. That saying, those who don't follow the rules are trash, but those who don't help their comrades are worse than trash, does not apply to you. You are such a hypocrite, and a failure in my eyes. Minato growled out as he walked to a black portal. I hope you are proud of yourself. Sensei, wait, came the shaky voice of Kakashi. Are you going to say sorry? Don't bother, it won't change a thing. Minato said as he adjusted his hold on Naruto and brought a hand into the air. Come. There was a pulse in the air and 8 orbs came and spun around his hand. This world has seen enough of the tailed beasts. It is time for the power of the Kraken to leave this world. In this way, the other demon containers would not die. Naruto would hate me if I killed that Gaara kid. With that, the blonde duo disappeared into the darkness, never to be seen again in this world. Kakashi fell to his knees, so lost that he never noticed the rain stop or how long he had been there. He slowly got back up and somberly walked back to the village. Lady Tsunade is not going to be happy. Sasuke, who was almost to Orochimaru, the man who promised him power, felt a burning sensation in his eyes and quickly went to a nearby puddle. The sight before him was the Mangekyo Sharingan. And no, that means that. Sasuke said to himself, not being able to finish his sentence. He silently cried to himself as he walked to Orochimaru's hideout. Sakura, Lee, and a few others were freaking out. Gaara had just screamed out when a tan ball of energy flew out of him. But now it seemed that he was fine. Tamari was fussing over her little brother, and when he said that he no longer heard the voice, she gave him a tearful hug. Though, one could not help but wonder what the hell just happened. Then a cry from the guards caught everyone's attention because they saw a figure in the distance. Taking a closer look, Tsunade saw that it was Kakashi. When the scarecrow-haired man finally made it to the gates, he fell to his knees with a broken and defeated look on his face. This did not bode well. Kakashi-sensei, what happened? Sakura hesitantly asked. They are both gone. Sasuke left the battle site, leaving Naruto to die. Only, what I got there. Naruto was unconscious but not alone. Kakashi droned out, giving the now-present Jiraiya a sad look. My sensei was there as well. He said that he saw everything and that he should have just let the village be destroyed by the Kyuubi. Then he called out to the tailed beasts and they obviously came and he took them and Naruto, to the underworld I would guess. Kakashi said while the younger generation gasped while Tsunade and Jiraiya looked away in shame. Sakura noticed this and asked, Sensei, who was your sensei? She asked with tears forming in her eyes over her lost teammates. Jiraiya was the one to answer her question. The 4th Hokage and Naruto's father. There was absolute silence at this statement. The ninja and the villagers who had arrived at the gates to welcome back the Uchiha all stared in shock at the toad sage before everyone let out a panicked, what? That consumed the village. A day after Naruto was taken from his world, the blonde was now in a bed. From the sounds outside the window, it seemed that it was very noisy out there. Slowly waking up, Naruto bolted up and looked around. This place was not his apartment in Konoha, nor was it a hospital room. Looking around him, he noticed a scroll addressed to him. Dear Naruto, I am sorry for what I did to you all those years ago. Yes, I am the 4th Hokage, but I am also your father. My name is Minato Namikaze. I understand if you hate me but know that I will always love you. Now, I have taken you away from Konoha, even from the elemental countries. You are in a place called the United States. More specifically New York City, New York. Though I am dead as Minato Namikaze, I am still alive, but thanks to your uncle I cannot be truly active in your life. Don't worry though, we will meet in time. When the time comes, I will be happy to see you. Now, since you are still young, you have to go to school in this world and I have enrolled you in Yancy Academy. In the seal at the bottom of the scroll, you will find all that you need in this world and that includes money. Also, there are some special jutsu that only you can learn since you are my son. Oh, just for a reference for the future, get a book on Greek mythology, you will need that info, trust me. Be careful my son. Minato. Naruto sighed as he looked out the window after reading the scroll. He had a lot to do in this new and strange world. Smirking, he created a shadow clone and got to work sorting out the stuff in the scroll. He didn't notice that his shadow clone came out differently. It literally formed from out of the shadows. It has been a few months since Naruto arrived in this new land. Learning a new language had been surprisingly easy. Though he did find out that he was dyslexic because of the fact that he would sometimes get the words backwards. That was not all bad, for you see, he had met a boy with the same problem. His name was Percy Jackson. The two got along very well. They were both impulsive and that hated being in school. Naruto's reason was because of his experience in the academy back home, while Percy's reason was that weird shit happened to him and that made not a lot of people like him. Now, Naruto being himself did not really give a rat's ass about that. That and the fact that he told Percy about his ninja abilities only strengthened their friendship. Percy wished that he could make shadow clones to do his own homework. Then through that friendship came another. Through Percy, he had met Grover Underwood. The boy was a cripple because he was always seen with crutches. He was also a bit of a hippie in his opinion because of the fact that he barely ever ate meat and by the way he dressed. Though all in all, Grover was a very nice guy. He usually looked out for Percy and himself the best he could, of course being crippled made him a bit weak. Now, however, our trio was on a bus to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. They were taking a trip to learn about Greek mythology, not that Naruto needed it since he knew a lot already. Sitting in his seat, Naruto saw what Percy was wearing for today. With his dark hair, he wore an orangish shirt, blue jeans, and some black shoes. Grover, who was sitting right next to Percy, had his usual crutches, a yellow shirt and some oversized pants on that hid his shoes. Naruto was the oddball of the group. Compared to his old clothes, he wore a pair of black DC shoes, some ripped jeans, and a black shirt on that had a picture of a skull with blue flames licking the teeth while a bluish-silver Chinese dragon broke through the top of the skull. He was getting annoying like Percy at the moment because Nancy Bobofit was throwing wads of her peanut butter and jelly at Grover, who was acting like nothing was happening to him for their sake. Sure, if Percy did anything to stop her he would be expelled for something stupid. The kid was already on probation because of the odd shit that happened to him but he could not help it. Naruto, however, was not and he could do anything within reason. He smirked in anticipation. I am going to kill her. Naruto heard Percy mumble. It is okay. I like peanut butter. Grover commented as he had to dodge a piece of Nancy's lunch. That's it. Percy growled out as he started to get up but Grover kept him down. That is when Percy saw the look in Naruto's eyes and smirked. You're already on probation, Grover reminded Percy. You know who'll get blamed if anything happens. Percy smirked and said, only if I am the one doing it. That statement made Grover suddenly look at Naruto and he was about to warn his other friend in the seat next to them, but he never got the chance to because at that moment, Nancy threw another piece of her lunch at Grover. Naruto, who had been fiddling with a paper football, immediately threw the paper projectile at the wad and it caught the piece of sandwich and kept on traveling to the window where it struck through a bit. Ms. Boba Fett, Naruto started with an annoyed smirk as he made fun of the girl's last name. Please stop that. Why the hell you care Uzumaki? You too cool for those two losers, so why bother helping them? The redhead questioned. Because they are better people than you are. Naruto said with a glare that sent chills down the girl's spine. Now please stop or next time, the paper football will be in you and not the window. Nancy took another look at window to see part of the paper was outside and paled. She quickly nodded her head. Good girl, Naruto said making a lot of the students around them laugh, included Percy and Grover. Mr. Brunner led the museum tour. He rode up front in his wheelchair, leading the group through the big galley, past marble statues, and glass cases full of really old black and orange pottery. Naruto could not help but chuckle at the choice of colors. Naruto looked at Percy and saw the boy was blown away by the fact that this old stuff was in good condition. Dude, your mouth is hanging open. Percy's face went red as he closed his mouth. Naruto just laughed at his friend's expression. Sorry, it is just that this stuff is really old. Hey, well, when you have fanatics looking for this stuff, they find it and try and bring it back to the condition it was once in. Naruto said. Percy looked at Naruto oddly before shaking his head. I keep forgetting that you are one of those fanatics. I mean you read about all that Greek mythology all the time. There is some pretty interesting stuff. Naruto shrugged as they walked with the group to where Mr. Brunner had stopped. Besides, Mr. Brunner is under the assumption that we should both know about it all. Percy just rolled his eyes. Easy for you to say, you're interested in it. I mean that class and math class is what you excel in. The others are mediocre, like me. Hey, touché. Naruto replied knowing he had been had there. Percy usually tried his best but thanks to his dyslexia and ADHD, he had a hard concentrating on much of anything at school. So the guy just didn't have much interest in them. Turning their attention to Mr. Brunner, they went quiet, listened to the guy tell them about the ancient gods and other stuff like that. He had gathered them around a 13-foot tall column with a big sphinx on the top, and the man started telling us how it was a grave marker, a steal, for a girl about our age. He told us about the carvings on the sides. Naruto noticed that Percy was actually paying attention, but the idiots around them would not shut up, and when Percy told them to be quiet, for some odd reason Miss Dodds, the annoying substitute math teacher, would give the both of them the evil eye. It was like she expected them to do something bad. That annoyed Naruto even further, and he was getting a bad vibe from her. Her chakra was odd too. He would have to keep an eye out for her. Grover noticed this as well, and we both nodded to each other. This was someone they would keep an eye out for, because when Percy told them that he thought she was not human, Grover gave him a very serious look like he already knew and agreed with him. Naruto just didn't like her because she was an old bitch. Anyway, Mr. Brunner just kept on talking about Greek funeral art. When Nancy blabbed about a naked man on the stele, Naruto saw Percy snapped and practically yelled at her to shut up. "Mr. Jackson," came the voice of Mr. Brunner, "did you have a comment?" "No sir." Percy replied, embarrassed by his outburst, which made Naruto shake his head. Sure, he was going to say the same to the redhead, but Percy beat him to it. The wheelchair man then pointed to one of the pictures on the stele, asking Percy what the picture meant. "That's Kronos eating his kids, right?" "Yes," Mr. Brunner said, looking not that satisfied. "And can you tell me why?" Seeing Percy have a hard time answer that question, Naruto decided to intervene. The psycho ate his kid because there was some prophecy telling him that his kids were going to take over one day like he did. Naruto explained, getting a sigh of relief from Percy. He Titan Lord went and got his panties in a bunch and ate his kids because of that, but all he really did was set the prophecy in motion and screwed himself over because his wife hid her last born, Zeus, and gave the guy a rock to eat. Talk about a real rockhead. Naruto joked, which made a lot of people laugh, including Mr. Brunner. Anyway, when Zeus was all grown up, he tricked his dad into barfing up his brothers and sisters, and well, the war between Titans and God came to be and the gods won. Ew. One of the girls commented on the barfing part. Of course, in my opinion, I find it odd that even if the gods were immortal, that they survived in Rockhead's stomach all those years. Hey, look at me little brother, I am still alive and covered in stomach acid, let's hug. Naruto joked, making people snicker. Behind the two everyone heard Nancy Bobofit mumble, like we're going to use this in real life. Like it's going to say on our job applications, please explain why Kronos ate his kids. And why, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Uzumaki. Mr. Brunner said, to paraphrase Miss Bobofit's excellent question, does this matter in real life? Busted. Grover muttered, shut up. Nancy barked at Grover, her face going redder than her hair. I don't know. Percy shrugged, a little relieved that Nancy was picked as well. Ya got me. Naruto said, maybe if we go to Greece we need to know this stuff. I see. Mr. Brunner said, a bit disappointed. Well, half credit to you both. Zeus did indeed feed Kronos a mixture of mustard and wine, which made him disgorge his other 5 children, who of course, being immortal gods, had been living and growing up completely undigested in the Titan's stomach. The gods defeated their father, sliced him to pieces with his own scythe, and scattered his remains in Tartarus, the darkest part of the underworld. On that happy note, it's time for lunch. Mrs. Dodds, would you lead us back outside? The class drifted off, the girls holding their stomachs, the guys roughhousing like normal and acting like morons. Grover, Percy, and Naruto were about to follow when Mr. Brunner said, Mr. Jackson, Mr. Uzumaki. They told Grover to keep one going while they handled whatever Wheels was going to say to them. Sir? Mr. Brunner had this look, like he knew a lot more than he let on, and that had seemed too much. You two must learn the answer to my question. About the Titans? Percy asked. About real life, and how your studies apply to it. Oh, the boys mumbled, though Naruto had the sinking feeling that the man was talking about both things. What you boys learn from me, he started, is vitally important. I expect you to treat it as such. I will only accept the best from both of you, Percy Jackson, Naruto Uzumaki. This made both of the boys a bit angry at the man. Sure, he was cool in class when he set up those tournament days, but the man was pushing the two of them a bit hard. Percy mumbled something about trying harder while Naruto just nodded his head as they left to go eat. Naruto noticed that Mr. Brunner gave a long sad look at the steel. It was odd to say the least. Hey, maybe the guy knew the girl, not likely. The class gathered on the front steps of the museum, where they could watch the foot traffic along Fifth Avenue. The boys noticed that storm clouds were brewing. Hey Naruto, what do you think is going on, with the weather and all? Naruto gave the boy a, are you serious look. You're asking me? I am not the freaking weatherman, but odd crap like this has been going on for a bit. You see it all over the news nowadays. Strange this is, no one else seems to notice the clouds other than us. With that, the two boys joined Grover as the fountain and sat down to eat. It was away from the others so they would not be bothered, and the fact that Percy didn't like being part of the school in the first made it seem that we're not part of the school for freaks. Of course, Naruto didn't care, but he was at first cheesed that he had to a school like this. Detention? Asked Grover. Nah, Percy answered, not from Brunner. I just wish he'd lay off me sometimes. I mean, I am not a genius. Naruto rolled his eyes and said, hey, it is like he knows something about us. Hey, maybe we are related to some old Greek god. The boys looked at each other and then burst out laughing, though for Grover it was a nervous laugh. After a bit, they were quiet. Then Grover asked for Percy's apple and the boy gave it to him. Percy seemed a little lost in thought. Thinking about your mom? Naruto asked. Yeah, we are kind of close to her place. I hope she is doing alright. I mean, she has been living with Gabe after all. Percy said, a little angry about her still with Gabe. Dude, I am sure she is alright. She put up with that slob this far, I am sure can do it a little bit more. Still don't see what she sees in that guy though. Naruto commented. Percy nodded and was about to unwrap his sandwich when Nancy Bobofit and her annoying friends came over and got brave by dumping her lunch on Grover, making Naruto and Percy glare at her. Oops, she drawled out while smirking at Percy, as if daring him to do something about that, and Naruto did not have a paper football help some. Naruto could tell that Percy was pissed and was trying to keep his temper down and was failing miserably. Then something weird happened. The water from the fountain rose up and pushed her onto her butt. He saw it perfectly because it had pulled his shadow up to hit her. That is not what she saw though. Percy and Naruto pushed me. Then that old bitch, Miss Dodds, came right up to them with a hard glare. Around them they heard whispers of what happened. Apparently, Naruto was not the only one to see the water and the shadows move. After the old crone had made her Nancy was alright, she turned the two boys and started off with that, now honey, crap, but Percy beat her to it. I know. Percy grumbled, a month of erasing workbooks. Naruto just sighed. This old hag was probably going to give him something worse. Though, it would seem that was not the right thing for Percy to say. Both of you, come with me. Wait, Grover spoke, it was me. I pushed her. We both started at Grover for that. Percy was stunned that Grover was trying to cover for them. Naruto was put off that Grover wanted the punishment for them. The old crone didn't seem to buy it and glared at him so hard that his chin trembled. He was scared of the old crone after all. I don't think so, Mr. Underwood. But, you will stay here. Miss Dodds forcefully said each word with anger, making Grover shrink a bit. It is okay, man. Percy said to his friend while Naruto nodded. With that, they left with Percy giving Nancy an evil glare while Naruto slowly took out a paper football, making the girl pale. That only made Naruto smirk. Though, when they looked back to Miss Dodds, she was already at the entrance of the museum. The boys looked at each other, thinking how the hell did she get over there so fast? Naruto got a gut feeling that this was not a good thing. The boys walked to the end of the entrance, thinking that the old crone was going to make them buy a shirt to replace Nancy's wet one, but that seemed to not be the case because they walked right past the gift shop. Something is not right. How far into the museum does she need to take us to bitch at us? Naruto thought as they walked deeper into the museum. He looked to that Percy had the same thoughts as him. The small group made it back to the Greek and Roman gallery of the museum to find the place completely empty. They heard her growl as she looked at the marble picture of the Greek gods. You boys have been making trouble for us, she said suddenly. This made the boys look at her oddly. Percy was thinking about the candy he was selling while Naruto was thinking about the way he has been doing his homework and selling some of it to people who did not do theirs. Well, I am not sure what you are talking about, Naruto replied. Ma'am, I don't. Percy started, but the old crone didn't let him finish. Your time is up, she hissed ominously. Then the weirdness came. Her eyes began to glow like barbecue coals. Her fingers stretched into talons. Her jacket melted into large, leathery wings. She was not human, that was for sure. She was pretty much an old bitch with bat wings and claws and a mouth full of yellow fangs, and it seemed that she was the boys as her next meal. Please tell me you see that too. Naruto whispered to Percy to fearfully nodded. Good, then I am not going insane. That is when things got even weirder, because Mr. Brunner, who had been reading a book at the entrance, was at the entrance of the gallery with a pen and some guitar keychains in his hands. What ho, boys! The man yelled to them as he threw the items at them. That was when the old crone lunged at Percy. Naruto, thinking fast, made a seal appear on his pants and kunai holster appeared. He then took out 2 of the black knives and threw them at whatever Miss Dodds had turned into. Get away from my friend, you psycho hag. While he had dodged that. He then saw Percy catch the pen, but the odd thing was that it had turned to a goldish sword. He then caught the guitar key chains in both hands in time to flip out of the way of Miss Dodds' claws. Percy's eyes widened when he saw his friend's new weapons. In Naruto's right hand was a red-hilted blade, and where the blade meets the hilt was a fierce-looking fox. The blade looked to be shooting out of the mouth of the fox, and it was orange. The other blade was black-hilted, and instead of a fox design, it was black dragon with red eyes. The blade on it was black as well. Naruto rolled over to where Percy was and looked at Miss Dodds. She was getting up from her strike at Naruto, and she looked pretty intimidating. Percy looked shaken by this, and it did not help that Naruto was a bit scared too. He had never fought something like this before. Then, she charged at the boys, and they thought of were to stab her, and they did. Just as their blades met, the old crone burst in a shower of yellow powder. It was like she vaporized on the spot with nothing but the smell of sulfur and a dying screech that sent chills up their spines. There was an evil chill in the air, like those creepy eyes were watching their every move. The boys were now alone in the gallery once more. They looked back to their weapons and were shocked to find something different in their possession. Percy had a gold ballpoint pen when Naruto had 2 black wristbands with the depicted animal on the guitar attachments on the wristbands. Okay, Naruto said out loud, I think we should get back to the others, something odd is defiantly going on here. Right, Percy agreed when he saw that Mr. Brunner was not in the room they were in. Back outside, it had started raining. Grover was using his museum map as a tent to keep himself from getting too wet, while Nancy was still wet from earlier. She looked to them and smirked. I hope Mrs. Kerr whipped your butts. Who? Percy let out. Our teacher, duh. The boys blinked, asking who that was, but all she did was walk away. They asked Grover where the old crone was, but he just gave them an odd look and asked, who? But he did pause first before saying it, like he knew something was going on. Not funny, man. Percy said, this is serious. He didn't answer as thunder boomed overhead. Shaking his head, Naruto led Percy over to Mr. Brunner, who was under a red umbrella reading his book, like he never moved. He looked up distracted and asked, my pen and good luck charms. Please bring your own writing utensil in the future, Mr. Jackson. Oh, and thank you for finding my good luck charms, Mr. Uzumaki. He said as they boys handed the items to him. Sir, Percy started. Where is Miss Dodds? Who? He said with a blank face. You know, the other chaperone, the math teacher. Naruto explained. Boys, there is now Miss Dodds on this trip, nor is there one in the school. Are you boys feeling all right? He asked concerned. The boys just sighed and left, making their way back to Grover. On the way back, Naruto muttered out, I think we just entered the Twilight Zone. Life after the freak show went on like normal, well as normal as it could get in this school. For the rest of the year both the boys were a bit put off by the revelation that Miss Dodds never existed. In her place was a perky blonde woman named Mrs. Kerr. When either of the boys would ask something about the old hag, people just looked at them like they were nuts. Naruto, however, did like the new teacher thought. She was a refreshing change from the old crone. Though everyone else seemed to not even know what the hell they were talking about, Grover seemed like he did. He would always hesitate before denying it though. He was such a bad liar. Something was going on. They knew that something had happened at the museum. Anyway, that freak storm continued and one time it blew out the windows in Percy's apartment. Luckily, Naruto offered him a place to stay until things were fixed and ready to go at his place. A few days later, the biggest tornado ever spotted in the Hudson Valley touched down only 50 from Yancey Academy, which was scary in itself. Luckily they didn't get hurt. Percy started feeling cranky and irritable most of the time. His grades slipped from D's to F's. He got into more fights with Nancy Bobofit and her friends. He was sent out into the hallway in almost every class. Naruto was in some of his class. He was feeling the same way. He stayed under control, most of the time. Something odd was going on and they were somehow affected, and it was getting really annoying. Though when Percy got in trouble for calling their English teacher an old sot, whatever that meant, the school sent a letter his mom telling her that Percy would not be allowed back next year. The boy's mood lifted, but just a little bit. Naruto could tell Percy missed his mom because he hated that fact that she was with Gabe of all people. The kid was homesick, no surprise there. Naruto sighed. He came to reality. Exam week was come up soon and he, like Percy and Grover, had to study. Like Shikamaru says, it is going to be troublesome. The night before the exams started, Naruto and Percy decided to have a study session at Percy's dorm. Throughout the night, Naruto could see that Percy was getting more and more agitated. Finally he threw his book across the room. Temper, Naruto commented, trying to liven up the atmosphere. Sorry, but how the hell am I supposed to know the difference? Kairon and Karen. Simple, one has an I and the other has an A in their name. Naruto smartly said with smirk. Percy slapped his face and gave Naruto a glare. Okay, let me help you then. Kairon, the one with the I, is half horse and trains heroes. Then we have Karen, the one with the A. He is the ferryman of the dead who is a greed ass. The dude loves Olympian money. Is that how you remember everything? Give it a short description and or insult them? Percy asked while trying to hide a smirk. Hey, easier for me to remember stuff like that. Naruto smiled. But my way might be best for you. Everyone has a different way of remembering stuff. Yeah, Percy said. I can't believe I am saying this, but I think I should go see Mr. Brunner. He might have a way that is good for me. Want me to come? Naruto asked. Yeah, so I don't feel like a total idiot going down there. Percy replied and got up to get his book. Naruto just laughed. They walked downstairs to the faculty offices. Most of them were dark and empty, but Mr. Brunner's door was ajar, light from his window stretching across the hallway floor. They were 3 steps from the door handle when the duo heard voices inside the office. Mr. Brunner asked a question. A voice that was definitely Grover's said, worried about Percy and Naruto, sir. The boys froze at that. They nodded and leaned in to eavesdrop. Not that they did it a lot, but when a friend is talking about you to a teacher, you'd want to know what was going on. Alone this summer, Grover was saying. I mean, a kindly one in the school. Now that we know for sure, and they know too, we would only make matters worse by rushing them, Mr. Brunner said. We need the boys to mature more. But he may not have time. The summer solstice deadline will have to be resolved without them, Grover. Let him enjoy his ignorance while he still can. Sir, they saw her. Quote. Their imagination, Mr. Brunner insisted. The mist over the students and staff will be enough to convince them of that. Sir, I can't fail in my duties again. Grover's voice was choked with emotion. You know what that would mean. You haven't failed, Grover, Mr. Brunner said kindly. I should have seen her for what she was. Now let's just worry about keeping Percy and Naruto alive until next fall. The mythology book that Percy had brought with him fell to the floor and Naruto's eyes widened in panic as all went silent. As soon as Percy grabbed the book, Naruto grabbed Percy and they ran for it. Percy saw something larger than Mr. Brunner come out of the room. He steered them to a nearby room to hide for a bit. A few seconds later they heard a slow clop clop clop, like muffled wood blocks, then a sound like an animal snuffling right outside the door. A large, dark shape paused in front of the glass and then moved on. Both the boys were sweating. That was too close. Somewhere in the hallway, Mr. Brunner spoke. Nothing, he murmured. My nerves haven't been right since the winter solstice. Mine neither, Grover said. But I could have sworn. Go back to the dorm, Mr. Brunner told him. You've got a long day of exams tomorrow. Don't remind me. They heard Grover whine. When the lights went off and Mr. Brunner's office went off, they bolted out of the room. They were hiding like a bat out hell. When they made it back to Percy's dorm, he locked the door. Okay, now we know for sure something is going on. Yeah, but what and who would want us dead? I mean, they talked as if someone was after us. Naruto pondered. Hey, you can stay the night. Percy said. I mean, you're the ninja here and if anything happens we would have a better chance at surviving. Fine with me, Naruto said. He then sighed, I just hope we survive the exams. Percy paled and then hung his head, once again reminded of the exams and why they went down there in the first place. I am so screwed. Just then Grover walked in like nothing had happened. Hey, how are you guys doing on the studying? When they both hung their heads and didn't say anything, he got worried. You guys okay? Naruto answered, yep, we are so screwed. The next afternoon, they finally got out of their 3-hour Latin exam. 3 hours of that madness. Naruto complained, tests back home were never like this. My eyes are swimming with all the Greek and Roman names that I misspelled. Percy complained as he held his head. Unfortunately, Mr. Brunner called them back in. Percy, he said, don't be discouraged about leaving Yancey. It's for the best. He then turned to Naruto and asked, what about you? Well, I am split between staying here for Grover's sake or going wherever Percy goes so he won't be the only new kid. Oh, and don't worry, I am used to hopping around. Mostly hopping dimensions, but you don't need to know that. When they were talking, Percy was getting annoyed by the Nancy Bobofit who, like some others, was still taking the test. I see, Mr. Brunner commented. I guess this place is not the right place for you boys then. It'd only a matter of time. Naruto glanced at Percy sadly to see that Percy was upset. I mean, his favorite teacher at this dump of a school and in front of a whole freaking class, was telling him that he couldn't handle it here. This made Naruto pissed off. Percy was his best friend in this land after all. No, Mr. Brunner said. Oh, confound it all. What I'm trying to say. You're not normal, Percy, and neither are you Naruto. That's nothing to be. Thanks, I blurted. Thanks a lot, sir, for reminding me. Percy, he called out, but Percy was already out the door. Naruto looked from the door to Mr. Brunner and scowled. Way to choose your words, Mr. Brunner. Naruto said as he left to chase after his friend. On the last day of the term, Naruto watched as Percy shoved his clothes into his suitcase. They listened to the other guys brag about where they were going this summer. Those idiots may be juvenile delinquents, but they were also rich juvenile delinquents. One of them asked Percy and Naruto where they were going. My home in the city for the summer. Percy replied. Same here. Naruto said, scaring Percy since he didn't know he had arrived yet. When did you get here? Percy asked while the others went back to what they were doing, as if the two didn't exist since they were nobodies to them. Hey, a few minutes ago man. Chuckled Naruto. Oh, Percy replied. So remind me again why I am going with you to your place for the day? Naruto said. Well, you can tell I have been a bit peeved lately and you usually help out when I am in a bad mood. So, I guess I need you to keep me in check because Gabe is going to really piss me off. Noted. Naruto commented, and then his eyes lit up. You know, I live right in the middle. You know, from your apartment to the school. I just noticed that. Good. Then you can come over more often. Percy mumbled as they left the school dorms to get on a bus, though he was wondering how Naruto got from his home to school in time for class. Must be a ninja thing? Both boys were dreading how they were going to say goodbye to Grover, but luckily for them, he was on the bus they were on. The whole bus ride, they saw that Grover was very fidgety, like he was expecting something to come out the works to come after him or us. He was like this every time they left the school campus, odd. Though Percy was getting annoyed by it and he blurted out, looking for kindly ones? Naruto smacked his head while Grover nearly jumped out of his seat. Wah, what do you mean? They both confessed about eavesdropping on his and Mr. Brunner's conversation the night before the exams. Grover's eye twitched. How much did you hear? Oh, not much. What's the summer solstice deadline? Percy asked. And is that too much for you? Naruto smirked. He winced. Look, guys. I was just worried for you, see? I mean, hallucinating about demon math teachers. Grover, dude. And I was telling Mr. Brunner that maybe you guys were overstressed or something, because there was no such person as Mrs. Dodds, and dude, you suck at lying. Naruto blurted out, making Grover sputter and his ear turn pink. From his shirt pocket, he fished out a couple of grubby business cards. Just take this, okay? In case you need me this summer. The card was in fancy script, which was murder on their dyslexic eyes, but they finally made out something like Grover Underwood, Keeper, Half-Blood Hill, Long Island, New York, 800-009-0009. What's half? Percy started. Don't say it aloud, he yelped. That's my, summer address. That made Naruto's eyes roll. There was something really odd going on, that was for sure. Percy looked a little sad, but even Grover had a summer home like the other people at school. At least Naruto is like me and lives close. Okay, he said glumly. So, like, if I want to come visit your mansion. He nodded. Or if you need me. Why would I need you? Percy growled out harshly, surprising even Naruto. Grover blushed right down to his Adam's apple. Look, Percy, the truth is, I kind of have to protect you, both of you, he said, making the boys look at him oddly. I mean, they were the one who had to protect him in the school. Grover, Percy said, what exactly are you protecting us from? Before he could answer, there was a huge grinding noise under our feet. Black smoke poured from the dashboard and the whole bus filled with a smell like rotten eggs. The driver cursed and limped the Greyhound bus over to the side of the highway. After a few minutes clanking around in the engine compartment, the driver announced that they'd all have to get off. Percy, Naruto, and Grover filed outside with everybody else. They were on a stretch of country road. No place you'd notice if you didn't break down there. On our side of the highway was nothing but maple trees and litter from passing cars. On the other side, across 4 lanes of asphalt shimmering with afternoon heat, was an old-fashioned fruit stand. Talk about being in the middle of nowhere. Naruto commented while hitting the back of his head on the bus. Raising an eyebrow, he took a look at the fruit stand on the other side of the street. The stuff on sale looked really good. Heaping boxes of blood-red cherries and apples, walnuts and apricots. Jugs of cider in a clawfoot tub full of ice. There were no customers, just 3 old ladies sitting in rocking chairs in the shade of a maple tree, knitting the biggest pair of socks they'd ever seen. These were no ordinary socks, they were as big as sweaters. Who wears socks that big? The lady on the right knitted one of them. The lady on the left knitted the other. The lady in the middle held an enormous basket of electric blue yarn. All 3 women looked ancient, with pale faces wrinkled like fruit leather, silver hair tied back in white bandanas, bony arms sticking out of bleached cotton dresses. The creepy thing is that they were staring right at Percy and Naruto. Talk about creepy, Naruto commented. Hey Grover, whatever Naruto was going to ask died in his throat. You okay, man? Percy asked when he saw Grover's face. They looked at Grover to see that all the color had drained out of him, that and his nose was twitching. Tell him. Are they looking at you too? There aren't they? Yeah, weird, huh? You think those socks would fit me? Asked Percy in a joking manner. Not likely, Naruto replied, getting really freaked out. I don't think they would even fit the fattest priest. Not funny, you two. Not funny at all. Grover whined. What is eating you? Naruto asked. Grover only pointed to the old ladies. The old lady in the middle took out a huge pair of scissors, gold and silver, long-bladed, like shears. They heard Grover catch his breath. We're getting on the bus, he told them. Come on. What? Percy said. It's 1,000 degrees in there. You actually like the heat, Grover? Naruto asked, complained. Come on. He pried open the door and climbed inside while the duo stayed back for a bit. Across the road, the old ladies were still watching them. The middle one cut the yarn, which they could hear that snip across 4 lanes of traffic. Her 2 friends balled up the electric blue socks, leaving me wondering who they could possibly be for, probably for Bigfoot or the man in the moon. Naruto rolled his eyes and climbed into the bus. Come on, let's go see Grover before he pisses himself. At the rear of the bus, the driver wrenched a big chunk of smoking metal out of the engine compartment, the bus shuddered, and the engine roared back to life and everyone cheered. Darn right, yelled the driver. He slapped the bus with his hat. Everybody back on board. Oh, just in time. Naruto drawled as he walked to the back with Percy. Once the bus got going, Percy got all feverish like he got the flu while Naruto started sweating and complaining about the heat. Grover was not any better, but he was chatting his teeth like he was cold. Grover? Asked Percy. Yeah? What are you not telling us? Grover dabbed his forehead with his shirt sleeve. Percy, what did you two see back at the fruit stand? A few old ladies with way too much time on their hand. Naruto replied while putting a hand on his forehead and wiping off the sweat. Yeah, Percy smirked but lost it at Grover's serious face. Wait, they're not like Miss Dodds, are they? The look he gave them made it seem worse. What could be worse? Just tell me what you saw. The middle one took out her scissors, and she cut the yarn. Percy shrugged, like it was nothing. Grover closed his eyes and made a gesture with his fingers that might have been crossing himself. But it wasn't. It was something else, something almost older. Now that is odd. He said, you saw her snip the cord. Yeah, so? Percy replied, getting the feeling like it was something big. This is not happening, Grover mumbled. He started chewing at his thumb. I don't want this to be like the last time. What last time? The boys asked, getting freaked out as much as Grover was now. Always 6th grade. They never get past 6th. Grover mumbled to himself again. Grover, Percy said, because he was really starting to get scared. What are you talking about? Let me walk you two home from the bus station. Promise me. This seemed like a strange request, but they promised he could. It is no problem, I am going over to his place anyway. Naruto replied. Is this like a superstition or something? Percy asked, but got no answer. Grover, that snipping of the yarn. Does that mean somebody is going to die? He looked at the two mournfully, like he was already picking the kind of flowers that would be best on their coffins. That is when the cogs of Naruto's mind started churning and rapidly. The things that have been happening lately in all the Greek mythology they had been learning finally caught up to him. Those 3 old crones were something that he paled at. Oh crap. What? Percy said, freaked out that Naruto was scared now. Neji was right. Fate, or in this case fates, do exist. Naruto replied, while Percy and Grover gawked at him. The rest of bus ride they listened to Grover freak out to himself the whole way. So it was not a surprise that when it was over that Grover had to go to the can. You see, when Grover get upset, his bladder act up. So when Grover went to the bathroom at the bus station, the boys quickly got away. Percy hailed a cab and they jumped in. East 104th and 1st, Percy told the driver. While Naruto made the shadow clone hand sign, Percy looked at him oddly when nothing happened. What was that about? As the yellow cab drove them away from the bus station, Naruto replied, I made one outside. You know Grover will freak out as he had been about not being able to protect you. Besides, I think it is time he knows what I can do. Percy gave Naruto a small smile and said, you know you are going to give him a heart attack. Naruto gave Percy a smirk as they traveled to his mom's apartment. Along the way, Percy told Naruto all about his mom. My mom's name is Sally Jackson and she is the best person in the world. That also proves my theory that the best people have the rottenest luck. Percy said as Naruto nodded, having heard that from him a few weeks ago. Grover got out of the bathroom and looked around for Percy and Naruto. He only saw Naruto with his arms crossed. Hey Naruto, where is Percy? He went home. Naruto replied, making Grover's eyes widen. Don't worry though, I am with him. What? How can that be possible? You are right here. Grover freaked. Grover, Mr. Brunner was right. Percy is not normal and in a sense, neither am I, Naruto explained, making Grover sweat under the blonde's gaze. Weird shit has been going on lately and it has been going on most of Percy's life. Me on the other hand, I think that stuff is a bit normal, the thing with people trying to kill you. Naruto then looked around them to see that the bus station was completely empty, everyone had left a while ago. I know I am not normal because I have powers that normal humans don't have. Remember that Grover, because that helped me protect Percy like you want. Naruto's form them faltered a bit before it went up in a hail of shadows flying into the nearby shadows. Grover had a look of pure shock on his face. No way. The demigod duo made it to Percy's apartment and paid. Percy looked up at the apartment nervously and said, Naruto, are you sure want to come in? Smelly Gabe is a real jerk and he will not be any different to you. Naruto smiled with a bit of annoyance. Yeah Percy. You told me about your mom and all her history and I still can't figure why she is with this Gabe. Don't worry, I won't anger him much. I am getting a bad feeling about this. Percy said as they entered the building, hoping his mom would be home from work. Instead, Smelly Gabe was in the living room, playing poker with his buddies. The television blared ESPN. Chips and beer cans were strewn all over the carpet. Wow, it is worse than I expected. Naruto thought with a deadpanned expression. Hardly looking up, Gabe said around his cigar, so, you're home, who is your loser friend? Naruto. Where's my mom? Percy replied shortly. Working, he said. You got any cash? That made Percy rolled his eyes. What? No, welcome back. Good to see you. How has your life been the last 6 months? Figures. Percy noticed that Gabe had put on weight. He looked like a tuskless walrus in thrift store clothes. He had about 3 hairs on his head, all combed over his bald scalp, as if that made him handsome or something. This guy managed the electronics megamart in Queens, but he stayed home most of the time. It was a wonder why he hadn't been fired long before. He just kept on collecting paychecks, spending the money on cigars that made Percy nauseous and on beer, of course. Always beer. Whenever Percy was home, he expected him to provide his gambling funds. He called that their guy's secret, meaning, if he told his mom, he would punch his lights out. Of course Naruto knew, as he had told him along the way. Naruto was not happy about that. "I don't have any cash," Naruto heard Percy tell him, which made the man raise a greasy eyebrow. Percy had told Naruto that the man could smell money but not much else, which was very odd. "You took a taxi from the bus station," he said. "Probably paid with a 20. Got 6, $7 in change. Somebody expects to live under this roof, he ought to carry his own weight. Am I right, Eddie?" Eddie, the super of the apartment building, looked at Percy with a twinge of sympathy. "Come on, Gabe," he said. "The kid just got here. Am I right?" Gabe repeated. Eddie scowled into his bowl of pretzels. The other 2 guys, Naruto noticed, passed gas in harmony. "Fine," Percy said. He dug a wad of dollars out of his pocket and threw the money on the table. "I hope you lose." Before anything could be said or done, Naruto put a hand on Percy's shoulder and the money. Percy looked at Naruto oddly before he noticed the gleam in Naruto's eye. Oh, Gabe was so screwed. "How about I play? You can take my money if I lose," Naruto said. Percy smirked. He knew from experience, and a lot of others at school too, that Naruto never lost at card games, and he didn't even know how to play some of them. "What, a brat like you?" Gabe said, eyeing Naruto. "Afraid of being beat by a kid?" Naruto smirked. "Besides, I got $100, are you going to pass up on that?" That got Gabe's attention. Even though he was mad, Naruto did have money. He would win it from this brat and rub it in his face. "Fine, sit down and play." "Good." Naruto sat down and leaned over to Percy. "This will be over soon. You should get settled in, it is your place after all." As the game began, Percy nodded and left. He hoped Gabe would so lose to Naruto. He slammed the door to his room, which really wasn't his room. During school months, it was Gabe's study. The man didn't study anything in there except old car magazines, but Gabe loved shoving Percy's stuff in the closet, leaving his muddy boots on my windowsill, and doing his best to make the place smell like his nasty cologne and cigars and stale beer. Percy dropped his suitcase on the bed. Home sweet home. Oh joy. As he thought about other stuff, he didn't know how much time had passed. He walked to his door in time to hear 2 things. Gabe's crying out, which he knew from experience that it was the cry of a loser, and his mom calling him. It seemed that she was home now. "I think this day just got better." She opened the door and looked at Percy with a smile on her face. "Oh, Percy." She hugged him tightly. "I can't believe it. You've grown since Christmas." "Thanks, Mom," Percy said. Her red, white and blue Sweet on America uniform smelled like the best things in the world. Chocolate, licorice, and all the other stuff she sold at the candy shop in Grand Central. She'd brought him a huge bag of free samples, the way she always did when he came home. "So who is your friend out there beating everyone at poker?" "Oh, that is Naruto Uzumaki. He is a good friend from school," Percy replied. "Good to know you have a friend," Cecily Jackson said softly as she hugged him again. Percy then began to tell her all about his school year at Yancey Academy. It seriously was not as bad as the headmaster said it was. He didn't really tell her much about the museum because it still freaked him out. "Did something scare you?" "No, Mom," Percy lied, "but whatever happened seemed to revolve around both me and Naruto," he said, making her eyes widen. So, Percy found a friend like himself. That is good, because if he ever got to that world, he would really need a friend. Mrs. Jackson thought to herself. From the other room, Gabe yelled, "Hey, Sally. How about some bean dip, huh?" Figures, even if he is beaten, he is still a jerk, Percy thought while grinding his teeth. "Oh, never mind. Your brat of a friend got it for us," came Gabe's voice again. Percy gave a weak smile when he heard that. "I so owe you for this, Naruto." "I have a surprise for you," Sally said. "We're going to the beach." Percy's eyes widened. "Montauk? 3 nights, same cabin. When?" She smiled. "As soon as I get change." He couldn't believe it. They hadn't been to Montauk the last 2 summers, because Gabe said there wasn't enough money. He then looked at her hopeful and said, "Can Naruto come too? He can pay, I am sure, after the beating he gave Gabe." She laughed and nodded her head. "I don't see the problem with that." With that they left his room and walked out to see a steaming Gabe and a smirking Naruto. Gabe's friends were looking at Naruto like he was the poker god. Gabe looked at them and regained his composure and said, "You were in there a long time." "Oh, we were just talking about the trip," Sally said happily. Gabe's eyes got small. "The trip? You mean you were serious about that?" "I knew it," Percy muttered. "He won't let us go." "Of course he will," his mom said evenly. "Your stepfather is just worried about money. That's all. Besides," she added, "Gabriel won't have to settle for bean dip. I'll make him enough. 7-layer dip for the whole weekend. Guacamole. Sour cream. The works." Gabe softened a bit. "So this money for your trip, it comes out of your clothes budget, right? Because I lost most of mine to this brat," the fat man said while jutting his pudgy finger at Naruto, who had an innocent look on his face. "Yes, honey," Sally said. "And you won't take my car anywhere but there and back. We'll be very careful." Gabe scratched his double chin. "Maybe if you hurry with that 7-layer dip. And maybe if the kid apologizes for interrupting my poker game. Maybe if I kick you in your soft spot," Percy thought. "And make you sing soprano for a week." He looked to his mom and it was a silent agreement that he had to be nice to Gabe if this was going to work. "I'm sorry," Percy muttered. "I'm really sorry I interrupted your incredibly important poker game. Please go back to it right now." Gabe narrowed his eyes, trying to detect sarcasm in what Percy said. "Yeah, whatever." He then turned to Naruto. "No more for you. Go away." Naruto just shrugged and walked over to Percy and his mom. "Oh, Naruto, would you like to come with us?" she asked. Sure. Are you sure you want someone like me on board?" "Yes, you are Percy's friend after all, so you must be a good kid," Sally replied, making Gabe roll his eyes. "Okay then. I hope you don't mind me paying for my stuff since I now have quite a bit of money," Naruto said, pocketing his money, which was about $500. He smirked when he heard Gabe complain about having to pay for Naruto's trip. "Thank you," Sally said with a smile because she heard it too. "Once we get to Montauk, we'll talk more about whatever you've forgotten to tell me, okay?" she said to Percy. Naruto just knew that he told his mom about a little of what happened. "Oh Naruto, do we need to go to your place for you to pack?" Before Gabe could complain, Naruto replied, "Nah, I got my stuff with me. Since I hung out at Percy's dorm at Lot, I hardly ever went home to my apartment, which is the halfway point from here to school." "Oh, okay then," Mrs. Jackson said, thinking that Naruto probably left his stuff somewhere near here. She then gave Percy a smile and went to make the dip for the fat dip. An hour later, they were all ready to go. Naruto had a backpack on now and Sally wondered where it had come from. Percy just smiled. "If only you knew, Mom." Gabe watched as Naruto and Percy put all the bags in the car. The ugly man groaned about losing his wife's cooking and then his car all weekend, which, unlike him, was cool. It was a '78 Camaro. "Not a scratch on this car, brain boy, poker brat," he warned them as they loaded the last bag. "Not one little scratch." Naruto just gave him a saluted as the fat man lumbered back in the apartment. He knew that Gabe really pissed Percy off and he now understood why. He was getting pissed at this guy as well. He then said Percy make that odd gesture that Grover did on the bus, and whatever he did worked because as soon smelly Gabe was in the doorway, the screen door slammed shut and probably sent the man flying. The two boys quickly got in the car and Percy told his mom to step on it as they didn't want to feel Gabe's wrath. After a bit, Naruto could not help but laugh at what he was happened. Though, that weird gesture Percy used had energy similar to chakra. Odd. Once they got there, Naruto smiled as he loved places like this. They set their stuff in the cabin that they got and messed around till it was dark out. They were currently sitting around a small fire, roasting hot dogs and marshmallows. "Mom, what was my father like?" Percy asked with some courage. "He was kind, Percy," she said. "Tall, handsome, and powerful. But gentle, too. You have his black hair, you know, and his green eyes." She fished a blue jelly bean out of her candy bag. "I wish he could see you, Percy. He would be so proud." Percy looked a little sad at that. Naruto thought that the kid was thinking about how his father would be proud of him with all that happened. "How old was I?" Percy asked. I mean, when he left? She watched the flames. He was only with me for one summer, Percy. Right here at this beach, this cabin. But, he knew me as a baby. No, honey. He knew I was expecting a baby, but he never saw you. He had to leave before you were born, she said, and then looked to Naruto, who had been silent for the conversation. Naruto, what are your parents like? Naruto chuckled a bit, but it was hollow. I am an orphan. I never really knew my parents. But I was given some stuff of my father's. He had a journal that described my mom to be a fiery and tomboyish redhead. She loved pranks as much as I do, and she was also a very caring person. I was told she died in childbirth. Now I heard that my dad was the best fighter around and an all-around nice guy, though if what I read is right, my mom wore the pants in that relationship. That made Percy chuckle a bit, and his mom had a big smile on her face. I am sorry about that. Sally said. Who is taking care of you? Don't be. My grandfather was taking care of me before he died. Naruto said, not wanting to tell them that he was killed. But I have been doing pretty well on my own anyway. Then Percy had a sad look. He didn't know if his mom even wanted him around. He didn't think he could handle being alone like Naruto. Are you going to send me away again? Percy asked her. To another boarding school? She pulled a marshmallow from the fire. I don't know, honey. Her voice was heavy. I think we'll have to do something. Because you don't want me around? But he regretted the words as soon as they were out. Her eyes welled with tears. She took his hand, squeezed it tight. Oh, Percy, no. I have to, honey. For your own good, I have to send you away. This made Naruto quirk an eyebrow. Okay. The way she is saying this means she knows something like Gover and Mr. Brunner. Because I'm not normal, Percy suddenly said. You say that as if it's a bad thing, Percy. But you don't realize how important you are. I thought Yancy Academy would be far enough away. I thought you'd finally be safe. Safe from what? Percy asked, though when he locked eyes with her, all the memories of weird shit happening to him had surfaced. Before anything else was said, Naruto cut in. Percy, not being normal is not that bad. I mean, look at me. I have this powers and I am fine. Mrs. Jackson looked at him oddly and he sighed, knowing that he would have to show her. He held out his hand and swirling ball of energy formed in his hand. Percy's eyes widened and said, you never showed that one to me, only those shadow clones. Shadow? Could he be just like Percy, a son of the Big Three? Sally thought as she eyed the ball before it dissipated. She gave Naruto a grateful look and continued on. I've tried to keep you as close to me as I could, she said to Percy. They told me that was a mistake, but there's only one other option, Percy. The place your father wanted to send you. And, I just can't stand to do it. My father wanted me to go to a special school? Not a school, she said softly. A summer camp, and apparently it is a place you both need to go to. Both boys just looked at her oddly. Naruto never heard anything about a camp in the letter he got from his dad. I'm sorry, Percy, she said, seeing the look in his eyes. But I can't talk about it. I couldn't send you to that place. It might mean saying goodbye to you for good. For good? But if it's only a summer camp. Percy trailed off as he saw the tears in his mom's eyes. It was storming out, but both boys were sound asleep and they were having the same exact dream. It was storming on the beach, and three beautiful animals, a white horse, a golden eagle, and pitch-black raven were trying to kill each other at the edge of the surf. Well, the raven was not doing much. It just hovered in midair, watching the two fight, and only with a mild look of interest. Of course it would attack at certain times. The eagle swooped down and slashed the horse's muzzle with its huge talons. The horse reared up and kicked at the eagle's wings. The raven then decided to claw at the eagle a bit before doing the same to the horse. As they fought, the ground rumbled, and a monstrous voice chuckled somewhere beneath the earth, goading the animals to fight harder. Percy and Naruto ran toward them, knowing they had to stop them from killing each other, but the problem was that they were running in slow motion. They knew they would be too late. They saw the eagle dive down, its beak aimed at the horse's wide eyes, while the raven decided to help out its flying companion. The two boys had enough and screamed, no. Thankfully it was just a dream, and they woke up with a start like it was a nightmare. Outside, it really was storming, the kind of storm that cracks trees and blows down houses. There was no horse, eagle, or raven on the beach, just lightning making false daylight, and 20-foot waves pounding the dunes like artillery. Though everyone once in a while they saw that the lightning was covered in black fire, or sometimes they also saw steaming hot water fly up into the sky, but it was a sickly black color. This shit never happens. With the next thunderclap, Percy's mom awoke. She sat up, eyes wide, and said, "Hurricane." Percy knew that was crazy. Long Island never sees hurricanes this early in the summer. But the ocean seemed to have forgotten. Over the roar of the wind, he heard a distant bellow, an angry, tortured sound that made his hair stand on end. Then a much closer noise, like mallets in the sand. A desperate voice. Someone yelling. Pounding on our cabin door. Mrs. Jackson sprang out of bed in her nightgown and threw open the lock. Grover stood framed in the doorway against a backdrop of pouring rain. But he wasn't exactly Grover. Searching all night, he gasped. What were you two thinking? Mrs. Jackson looked at them in terror. Not scared of Grover, but of why he'd come. They were too shocked at the moment to register that, however. Because, instead of normal legs, Grover had legs that were like an animal's, sort of like a donkey or maybe a goat. "Percy," she said, shouting to be heard over the rain. "What happened at school? What didn't you tell me?" "Ozu kai aloi theo I." Grover yelled. "It's right behind me. Didn't you tell her? You mean the kindly one you blabbed about, or the old crones who are the fates?" Naruto shouted above the noise, making Percy's mom widen her eyes in horror. She grabbed her purse, tossed Percy and Naruto a rain jacket, and said, "Get to the car. All of you, go." Grover ran for the Camaro, but he wasn't running, exactly. He was trotting, shaking his shaggy hindquarters, and suddenly his story about a muscular disorder in his legs made sense to me. That would explain how he could run so fast and still limp when he walked. "Yep, we have entered the Twilight Zone," Naruto mumbled. "But what is coming after us?" He never got an answer because Grover quickly got in the car, not hearing him. He sighed and got in, going with the flow. The group tore through the night along dark country roads. Wind slammed against the Camaro. Rain lashed the windshield. The boys honestly didn't know how Percy's mom could see anything, but she kept her foot on the gas. Naruto looked at Grover oddly, and when the lightning flashed, he saw those goat legs. He sighed, already knowing what he was, and knew that Grover was on their side, hopefully. "So, you and my mom know each other?" Percy asked, not able to stay silent. Grover's eyes flitted to the rearview mirror, though there were no cars behind them. "Not exactly," he said. "I mean, we've never met in person. But she knew I was watching you." "Watching me?" "Keeping tabs on you, making sure you were okay. But I wasn't faking being your friend," he added hastily. "I am your friend." What are you, exactly?" Percy asked. "That doesn't matter right now." "It doesn't matter? From the waist down, my best friend is a donkey." Grover let out a sharp, throaty, blah ha ha. Naruto could tell that Grover a bit ticked, but he gaffed. That was really funny to him. "Goat," Grover cried. "What?" Once getting himself under control, Naruto helped the poor guy out. "Percy, he is a satyr, a being that is half human and half goat." "Huh? But, you would mean Mr. Brunner's myths? You paid attention to that?" Naruto smirked. "Let's throw a party." Percy just glared at him. Okay. Anyway, with the way Grover reacted, I am assuming that other satyr would trample you for that donkey remark. I thought it didn't matter." Percy shot back while Grover bleated again. "Obviously it does," Naruto replied with a smirk. "Wait, so all that Mr. Brunner taught us was actually preparing us for this stuff?" "Pretty much," Grover said. "Great," Naruto replied sarcastically. "Just what we need. Freaky monsters coming after us. Not only that, but those three old ladies were the fates and not myths, and neither was Mrs. Dodds." Grover told them. "So you admit there was a Mrs. Dodds?" Percy exclaimed. "Of course." "Okay, so what was the point of hiding the fact that she was real?" Naruto asked. "The less you knew, the fewer monsters you'd attract," Grover said. "Like that should be perfectly obvious. We put mist over the human's eyes. We hoped you'd think the kindly one was a hallucination. But it was no good. You both started to realize who you are." "Who I? Wait a minute, what do you mean?" Percy asked. "Yeah, you lost me as well." Naruto deadpanned. The weird bellowing noise rose up again somewhere behind us, closer than before. Whatever was chasing us was still on our trail. "Percy," his mom said, "there's too much to explain and not enough time. We have to get you two to safety." "Safety from what? Who's after us?" Percy asked while Naruto raised an eyebrow. Oh, nobody much, Grover said, obviously still miffed about the donkey comment. Just the Lord of the Dead and a few of his bloodthirstiest minions. Grover, sorry, Mrs. Jackson, could you drive faster, please? Grover replied. What, you mean Hades? Naruto replied, and the ground shook a bit and Grover nodded, a little panicked. While the boys were trying to wrap their heads around all this madness, Percy's mom made a hard left. They swerved onto a narrower road, racing past darkened farmhouses and wooded hills and pick your own strawberry signs on white picket fences. Where are we going? Percy asked. The summer camp one told you about. His mother's voice was tight. She was trying for Percy's sake not to be scared. The place your father wanted to send you. The place you didn't want me to go. Please, dear, his mother begged. This is hard enough. Try to understand. You're in danger. Because some old ladies cut yarn? Percy asked, and Naruto sighed. Man, if you paid attention in class, why that is bad. Naruto said. When they cut the yarn, that means someone is going to die. Exactly. Grover said, the fact they appeared in front of you too, they only do that when you're about to. When someone's about to die. Whoa, you said, you. Percy freaked. No, I didn't. I said, someone. Grover replied. Still not very helpful. Naruto said. Yeah, you meant me. Percy said. I meant you, like, someone. Not you, you. God, I hope it is not me or you. Naruto replied. Boys, Percy's mom said. She pulled the wheel hard to the right, and they got a glimpse of a figure she'd swerved to avoid. A dark fluttering shape now lost behind us in the storm. The hell was that? Naruto freaked. We're almost there, Mrs. Jackson said, ignoring Naruto's question. Another mile. Please, please, please. They didn't know what there was, but it had to be safe from whatever the hell was chasing them. It is not Mrs. Dodd's, that is for sure. Whatever it is, it's bigger and stronger than last time. This is reminding me of the wave mission, only we are fleeing for our lives. While Naruto was thinking that, Percy was thinking about the blades Mr. Brunner had thrown to them. Before he could ask Grover about that, the hair rose on the back of my neck. There was a blinding flash, a jaw-rattling boom, and the car exploded. It was an odd feeling being blown up, like you were, weightless, crushed, burned, and being hosed down all at the same time. Percy pried his forehand off the driver's seat in front of him as his mom called out to him. I am fine, he said. He heard Naruto mutter out a super, as they noticed the car was still intact because it was in a ditch. They sighed in relief that they were not dead, not yet anyway. While Naruto was trying to regain his bearings, Percy noticed that Grover looked unconscious. Grover, food, he groaned. Naruto's sweat dropped at that. Yeah, he was going to be fine. Percy, his mother said, we have to. Her voice faltered, because when the lightning flashed, they saw a huge figure through the mud-splashed window. Hello, Naruto said, surprised. Boys, Percy's mother said, deadly serious. Get out of the car. She tried, the driver said, but all the mud was blocking their way out. Passengers sighed. Get out now and run to the big tree. She yelled, pointing to a large tree in the distance as they got out. What? Percy replied, confused, until the lightning flashed and a large pine tree in the distance appeared, and the thing was huge. That's the property line, his mom said. Get over that hill and you'll see a big farmhouse down in the valley. Run and don't look back. Yell for help. Don't stop until you reach the door. Mom, you're coming too. Her face was pale, her eyes as sad as when she looked at the ocean. No, Percy shouted. You are coming with us. Help me carry Grover. Food. Grover moaned, a little louder. Naruto growled and yelled above the rain. Give him to me. We will get there faster that way. Percy nodded and gave Grover to Naruto and turned back to Mom to see the creature coming towards them. It was huge. That, and it seemed that it had fur on it. Naruto turned to look at it and yelled, holy cow. There is nothing holy about that creature, and it is not a cow. Mrs. Jackson was able to shout out. Naruto looked at her with a deadpanned expression that said, duh, and looked at it again, and he saw horns jutting out its head. Yeah, not a cow but a bull. Still, it was not good. He doesn't want us, Mrs. Jackson called out. He just wants you too. Besides, I can't cross the property line. But, Percy and Naruto started to say. We don't have time. Go, please. This just mad Percy mad, and he went over to his mother and helped tee out all the way. We're going together. Come on, Mom. Naruto just smirked at Percy's stubbornness, just like him in some aspects. I told you, Mom, I am not leaving you. Come on. They got a portion of the way, but the monster was gaining on them and quick. Naruto looked at it again and his eyes widened. Holy crap. That thing looks like it is on steroids, he said, commenting on all the bulging and rippling muscles on that thing. Percy blinked owlishly, recognizing this creature from Mr. Brunner's class. That's Pasiphae's son, his mother said. I wish I'd known how badly they want to kill you. But he's the man. Don't say his name, she warned. Names have power. Terrific, this really is like the wave mission. Naruto replied, getting odd looks as they ran. I'll tell y'all later. Naruto replied as they ran. He too knew what this creature was and growled. It was a big brute called the Minotaur. It might strong, but it was dumb if the books were right. The only thing that it could rely on was its sense of smell out in this weather, and it was only a matter of time before it found them. As if on cue, the bullman bellowed in rage. He picked up Gabe's Camaro by the torn roof, the chassis creaking and groaning. He raised the car over his head and threw it down the road. It slammed into the wet asphalt and skidded in a shower of sparks for about half a mile before coming to a stop. The gas tank exploded. Oops, Percy said. Yeah, so much for not a scratch. Naruto laughed a little freaked out. That thing has Granny Tsunade's strength. Boy, Percy's mom said. When he sees us, he'll charge. Wait until the last second, then jump out of the way, directly sideways. He can't change directions very well once he's charging. Do you understand? Oh, that is useful, Naruto said. How do you know all this? Percy asked. I've been worried about an attack for a long time. I should have expected this. I was selfish, keeping you near me. Mrs. Jackson said sadly. What's done is done. Besides, you're a mom, it is natural. Naruto replied while Percy nodded to that statement. But there was another bellow of rage, and the bullman started tromping uphill. Great, Naruto panicked. The bullman on steroids had smelled them and was charging in fast. To Naruto, everything was happening in slow motion. He readied himself for what he had to do. Gathering some chakra to his legs and tightening his hold on Goat Boy, he patiently waited for the right moment. 20 feet, 10 feet, 5 feet. He saw Mrs. Jackson roll out of the way, but it seemed Percy was waiting too long. So he used his free hand and pushed him out of harm's way and jumped him into the air, heading for the tree. The monster seemed miffed by this as it blinked in confusion until he vaguely saw Naruto land near the tree. Snorting, he faced Percy. It was sent for a purpose after all. To abduct Percy's mother and then test the master's son. Naruto growled. He would not let his friend die. So he laid Grover down near the tree and jumped back to Percy. He landed Percy as his mom got to him. They looked at him oddly again and he said, "It is a ninja thing. Come on." Then they ran for their lives to the tree. Naruto wondered why Mrs. Jackson said that she was not able to get to where they were going. Reaching the hill with the tree, the boys took notice that a valley was below them and it had a farmhouse that had yellow lights glowing in the window. Scowling, Naruto growled. With the way things were going, they would never make it. Run, Percy. Naruto heard Mrs. Jackson call out. I can't go any farther. Run. They froze in shock and fear as the Minotaur came rushing up to them, and she tried to get out of the way like last time, but it had learned its lesson last time. It brought out an arm and caught her by the neck while she struggled to get away. Mom, Mrs. Jackson, the boys screamed. She caught Percy's eyes, managed to choke out one last word. Go. Then, with an angry roar, the monster closed his fists around his mother's neck, and she dissolved before their eyes, melting into light, a shimmering golden form, as if she were a holographic projection. A blinding flash and she was simply gone. No, Percy yelled. What the hell is going on? Naruto yelled, irritated about what was going on. Anger overcame Percy and the boys nodded. They would have to try and take this thing down like Mrs. Dodds. It caught sight of Grover and charged after him, intent to stuff him out. Ah, let's make this thing holy. Naruto yelled while Percy took off his red jacket. Hey steroid freak, over here. That got the beast's attention back on them. Percy flung his red jacket around like Matador would do as it charged after them. However, he could not jump out of the way like before. He imitated Naruto and jumped upward and went farther than usual somehow. Wonder how he did that, as he couldn't chakra like Naruto. He turned his attention back to the bull because it had impacted the tree, one of its horns stuck on it. Naruto smirked as he created a swirling ball of energy in his hands and shouted, "There was a reason I never showed you this before." Rasengan. He slammed the ball into the side of the creature. It flew a few feet away at an odd angle because when it did, its horn broke off. Percy quickly ripped it out, hoping to use it as a makeshift weapon. Naruto was about to tell him not to bother with until he saw the Minotaur getting back up. Looking in horror, they saw the huge hole in the gut of the beast, but it seemed to be healing up quickly. Before they do anything, however, it charged at them again. It swung at Percy and sent him a few feet away, knocking the air out of him. It did the same to Naruto, but he rolled with the blow so it would not do as much damage. Jumping back at it, he activated the seal on his pants, took out a kunai, channeled chakra to it, and sliced the remaining horn off, making it cry out in rage. Seeing that Percy was getting back up, he thought quickly. Normal attacks don't do a lot of damage, but it does have a nasty scar from my Rasengan. Maybe it doesn't heal all the way, what if using its horns will work? He then stabbed the horn into the old wound and it twisted harshly. It cried out in agony when he did that, and it seemed that it was not healing at all. He quickly jumped over it and on its back, stabbing it in the neck. "Percy! Stab for the heart! The heart!" he yelled out, struggling to stay on. Percy seemed to get the idea and quickly ran up to it, avoiding the massive flailing arm that were trying to get Naruto off of it. He stabbed it hard and it cried out before it burst into the same crap Mrs. Dodds did. Collapsing to his knees, he felt the rush of adrenaline wear off and the feeling of losing his mother was starting to crash down on him. Naruto picked up Percy. They supposed each other until they got to Grover. "Come on, we gotta get to that house, we won't be out of the woods until we do," Naruto said as he threw Grover over his shoulder while the two demigods supported each other as the rain has suddenly stopped. When they got to the pouch, Naruto fell to his knees and it seemed that Percy was barely conscious. The weight of the two and the battle was just now getting to him. I am weak. I have not fought in a long time." Looking up, he saw the familiar face of Mr. Brunner, who was giving them a serious look. He also a very pretty blonde-haired girl, whose hair looked curled like a princess's. "One of them has to be it, they just have to," the girl said. "Silence, Annabeth," Mr. Brunner said. "They're still conscious. Bring them inside." "Yes, they would be very helpful if you don't mind," Naruto replied weakly, catching them off guard. Going inside, Naruto helped the girl named Annabeth put Percy and Grover on different cots in the room. My name is Annabeth Chase, by the way," the girl said with a small smile. Naruto cracked his back and said with a weak smile, "Naruto Uzumaki, and if you don't mind, I am about to lose consciousness." Annabeth had wide eyes as she watched him put his back to the cot and say, "Good night," before falling down, out like a light. "Still never ceases to amaze me," Mr. Brunner suddenly said, making the girl jump. "Which one?" "All three. They protected each other in that school I went to." "Naruto seems to be a natural fighter though," he replied, "but considering where he from, I am not surprised." "Where?" "Oh, I am sure he will tell you and the rest of the camp later. Come and get me when one of them wakes," Mr. Brunner said as he left. Now Annabeth was even more curious. Naruto woke up with a start as he bolted up in the bed he was in. That scared the crap out of Annabeth, who had just walked in. "Aw, don't do that." "Hey, sorry," Naruto said while scratching the back of his head. He looked at the horn he was still holding and then to Percy, who was still out of it. He brought a hand up to his chin and said, "So all of that crap did happen?" "Yep," sighed Annabeth. "I still can't believe you two were able to kill that monster." Naruto smirked and said, "Believe it. Anyway, knowing that name-shave power around here, I will just call it the bullfreak on steroids." Annabeth stared at Naruto for a long time, making him a bit uncomfortable, until she let out a laugh, which was followed by another laugh from Mr. Brunner. "Good to see you again, old man," Naruto commented. Before Annabeth could correct him, Mr. Brunner chuckled and said, "Naruto, here I am called Chiron." The look on Naruto was priceless. He was still smiling, but he had the, "oh shit," smile. "Oh, so where is your horse half?" "This is a magical wheelchair to when I want to go out. I use this to hide my true self," the now dubbed Chiron replied. "Oh, that makes sense. So, how long was I out?" "You just got here last night. That is why I said you shouldn't even be up," Annabeth said. "Oh, well, I have always been a really fast healer. I thought it was because of the fox, but... He trailed off as he saw Annabeth gave him a look of confusion while Chiron had a serious look on his face. I take it you have no clue what I am talking about. No, the blonde girl said. I have an idea. Fox is known as the Kyuubi, correct? Chiron asked. Yeah, how do you know about that in this world? Naruto asked with narrowed eyes while Annabeth looked even more confused. I hear things when I got to the annual meets of the gods. Some speak about going to a world that the Lord of the Dead banished the beast known as the Kraken to. Though it may be long gone thanks to a man called the Six Paths Sage, it's remained. They were known as the tailed beasts and the Kyuubi was the strongest of them all. Chiron explained. They even spoke of people who were forced at birth to hold these beasts in their bodies via a seal and you were one of them. Yeah, so what of it? Naruto asked. Only a demigod can handle the power of the Kyuubi within their body but not any old demigod. No a child of the Big Three, or one's descendants. You are in the same boat as Percy. If you are indeed a child of the Big Three, then one of you has to decide the fate of the world at a later time as said in a prophecy of the oracle. Naruto held up a hand for him to stop. I am not interested nor do I want to decide the fate of the world. If what you say is true then, I will leave it to Percy, he is a good kid. I am sure you will do the right thing. As for me deciding that, well, as an old friend says, it is way too troublesome. I see, just know that the prophecy says the time will come when the demigod is 16, so we have time. Chiron replied. Naruto's eyes widened and he inwardly groaned before saying, well, nothing is set in stone. He then tried to get up but felt kind of weak. Great, one major fight and I am out. I need to get back in shape. He then thought back to what Chiron said. Hey, if I am a kid of the Big Three, whose am I? We have an idea, but we must keep quiet until they claim you. Besides, being one of the Big Three's kids is kind of bad. Chiron stated. Why? Because, they swore an oath after World War II that they would not have kids anymore. Annabeth answered for him. Naruto snorted. Well, we can see how that worked out. Yes, Chiron smirked. Annabeth, will you please get some ambrosia and nectar? It should help him recover faster. As she left, he noticed Naruto looking at him oddly. It is the food of the gods. Normal human can't eat it or they will die. Demigods eat it because it helps them recover and it is good for them. Ah, Naruto's smart reply was, oh and I almost forgot. These are yours now, sew them wisely. Chiron said as he took out those familiar lucky charms of his. Taking them, Naruto asked, so these actually turn into those blades I was using at the museum? Yes, and they each hold half of the Kraken's power so please be careful. Huh? Your father had the smith god forge them from its raw power. Oh, Naruto as he took the bracelets and put them on. Then Annabeth came in with the bowl of some golden liquid. Shrugging as it was better than nothing he took and bite and tasted an all too familiar taste. Could it be, was he right about it after all? It tastes just like Ichiraku's ramen. He yelled out with anime ears, making Annabeth take a step back at his suddenly loud voice that didn't even wake up Percy. Chiron just chuckled nervously. So how do you feel? Chiron asked. Like I could fight Zabuza Momochi, demon of the bloody mist and come out on top. Naruto said as he got up. He noticed he still had his kunai pouch on and put the horn in it and seal it all back up, making Annabeth's eyes go wide. What the? She let out. Naruto looked at her oddly before saying, seals, very useful. Indeed, Chiron commented with a smirk. Now I will have a camper show you the cabin for later. Then you come back here. When Percy wakes up I will tell more about this as I don't want to say this twice. Fair enough. Naruto as he follow him out the door. Annabeth, please continue to watch Percy please. Chiron ordered while the girl nodded, still wondering about those seals. Once outside, Naruto raised an eyebrow. This place was pretty big. He looked around to see that the hill with the pine tree was not far from them. He felt odd looking at it, like he was being pulled towards it. He shook the feeling off for the moment and looked ahead to see a bunch of cabins in a U-shaped arc. Chiron, not noticing Naruto's small distraction, called out to he saw a girl walking by, Clara C. Come here please. The girl turned her head and saw Chiron and one of the new guys everyone was talking about. She smirked and walked over. Naruto noticed that she was pretty tall, strong-looking, and probably a year or two older than him. She was not totally ugly, she looked gruff and had the look of a fighter. What? Came her response when she arrived. I would like for you to show Naruto here around the cabins for the moment. I will probably have Annabeth show Naruto and Percy around camp later when the latter wakes up. Chiron stated. Fine, gotta welcome the newbie anyway, she said with an evil smirk. Naruto raised an eyebrow as that. He knew that smirk, he used it when he did a prank. He guessed that she was welcoming committee. Well, come on, brat, she called out, already walking away. He followed her all the way to the middle of the arc of cabins. Okay. Listen closely, cuz I am only going to say this once. There are 12 cabins in all. Each one represents the Greek good it was made for. Their kids are the one who live in there. Since you and the runt are new and have not been claimed yet, you two will go to cabin 11, the Hermes cabin. Naruto nodded. Hermes did shelter a lot of people, so it made sense. And the one you in? He asked nonchalantly. The god of war's cabin, she proclaimed while pointing to a red cabin. Cool, Naruto replied. Right, now we have the other cabins. We got Demeter, Dionysus, Athena, Apollo, Aphrodite, Hephaestus, Hera, Zeus, Artemis and Poseidon, she said, pointing to each. He looked at Zeus and Hera's and quirked an eyebrow. They got some pretty fancy cabins for nobody to use. He noticed that a Hades cabin was not there, odd since he was part of the big three. He also noticed a big space between Poseidon and Zeus's cabins. Maybe they planned on making one and forgot since they never got any kids from Hades. Now, it is not to officially welcome you, Clarice called out, making a lot of people look toward them and they grimaced. Clarice was breaking in another newbie. Even though Naruto helped in killing the Minotaur, they felt sorry for him. She quickly reacted out and tried to grab him by the collar. Key word here is tried. She along with everyone else gasped as A grabbed a log of wood, stumbled, fell to one knee. What the hell? She screamed in her head. Before she could get up, she felt cold metal against her neck. She glanced to the right to see Naruto was facing the other way she was and looked at her from his side and with a smirk on his face, similar to her evil one earlier. For someone born from war, you have slow reflexes, Naruto said, releasing a small bit of killer intent while still smirking. They heard a lot of people asking others how he did that, and to Clarice of all people. Some noticed that he had his kunai pouch on and that he didn't have that before. Deciding to scare them, he withdrew his kunai from her neck, put it in his pouch, sealed it away, earning a few gasps of shock as it just disappeared. He shocked them even more as he stepped back and offered a hand to help Clarice up. While that was happening, Clarice was in deep shock. The hell, I have never been bested like that. She then noticed the hand and quickly took it. She nodded her head and they walked back to the big house where Naruto came out of. Along the way, she was thinking deeply. He could be an Aries kid, if he is not, I am not sure what else he could be. He beat me and could have killed me with me knowing it. What is this odd-ass feeling? Arriving at the big house, Chiron saw that Naruto looked bored and Classire looked a little lost. He had a feeling something went wrong with her welcome plan and wait, could see that she was developing a crush for the blonde. Gods, I feel so sorry for him. At any rate, he was probably going to be hearing what happened from the other campers. Back already, I see. He started, since Percy won't be fully awake until tomorrow, I would like for you to stay near here. Alright then, I am going to take a nap next to the big pine tree. Say a later, Chiron, Clarice. And before Chiron could say anything, Naruto had ninja jumped up to the tree. Neither noticed that Clarice had quickly walked away with a small pink tint to her cheeks. Naruto arrived at the tree and sat down with his back to it. This tree had been pulling at him the whole time. He idly wondered if it was cursed or something like that. Slowly falling asleep, he laid his head against the tree and was out. Whenever he slept, he had dreams, but this was the most vivid dream he had ever had. He was in a large white room and he was not alone. A girl stood across from him, staring at him with shocked eyes. She has shoulder-length spiky black hair, and blue eyes, with freckles under her eyes, mostly on the left, and she is wearing some punk-style clothes. To him she looked beautiful. Hey. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. Who are you and where are we, as I know this can't be a dream? The girl gulped and said, Talia, and we are in Limbo. Now hold on, I know I am not dead. All I did was fall asleep against your tree, as people call it. Naruto said, a bit panicked in this situation. Your guess is as good as mine. Talia shrugged. Anyway, you know my name, but I don't know yours? Oh, My name is Naruto Uzumaki and apparently I am a demigod. Naruto replied, calming down and walking up to shake hand with her. Nice to meet you, Naruto. Taliah said with a smile as she sent electricity up his arm. Feeling his arm go numb, Naruto said, I take it you are a demigod too. So, whose kid are you? Taliah scowled a bit and said, Zeus. You? The blonde rose an eyebrow but didn't say much to her scowling. Not a clue, same for Percy. He arrived here with me and a satyr named Grover. Grover? Yeah, you've heard of him? Naruto said as he backed up from her outburst. He was the satyr who found me, Annabeth, and Luke. How are they by the way? Well, Grover is always trying to protect me and Percy, but with his facade as a cripple, it did not work that well. Him and Percy are best friends. Annabeth is a nice person from what I have seen, and I have not even seen this Luke guy yet. Naruto replied with a shrug. How long have you been here anyway? I think more than 5 years. Oh wow. Well, since I have this odd Limbo entering power, I guess I can keep you company every now and then. Naruto said with a smile. Taliah smiled back. I would like that, but if you tell the others about this, they might not believe you. I kind of figured that. Naruto chuckled. Naruto. Yeah? I think I might know whose kid you are. What do you think? Hades. Naruto chuckled. Well, if that is the case, you still got a friend in me. I don't really care if our parents hate each other, which should not have anything to do with us. Taliah smiled and gave him a hug. Thank you. And, I won't hate you either. Besides, that is a stupid reason anyway. Exactly. Naruto said as then felt himself waking up. Well, till next time. Yeah, she said a little sadly. Don't worry, Taliah. I'll be back, I promise, and I never go back on my promises. Taliah chuckled. I'll hold you to that, Naruto. Naruto just backed up from the hug and gave her a thumbs up as he disappeared. See you later, Naruto. She whispered to herself with a slight blush. Back in the normal world, Naruto could see that it was morning. Didn't think I was in Limbo that long. Well, I will just have to learn how to control it if I am the son of Hades. Getting up, headed back to the big house to see Grover, Annabeth, and Chiron there around a table with 2 other people he had not met yet. Yo, they turned their heads and saw him. Well, I thought you disappeared. Chiron said, fully turning around. Oh, I just fell asleep against Taliah's tree. Naruto replied. Really? I don't remember telling you the name of the tree. Annabeth stated. Naruto smirked and said, I heard it from some campers yesterday. I am not sure if they would believe me. Anyway, I would like you to meet these 2. Chiron said. Naruto took a look at them both. One had a surfer's build and had a lot of eyes all over his body. The other one was an old fat man. These 2 are Argus and Mr. D respectively. Naruto just nodded because Mr. D looked very tired, or was it bored? Well, I guess I must say it. Welcome to Camp Half-Blood. Nice to be here. Naruto smiled, and it was infectious because the man smiled, but it was small. Thinking back to all the mythology he had read, though that would shock his friends back home. Anyway, he didn't know a lot or remember a lot of people that started with a D, so that brought out the thing he was about to say. Mr. D, I don't know a lot of Greek history, but there is one guy whose name would fit with you. But names are powerful, so I will just say that you are the wine god. Well, you are a smart boy. You are correct. Mr. D replied, gaining some respect for the blonde. Wow, Granny Tsunade would love you then. She drinks all the time. Oh, and since your other power is similar to her family's Mokuton power, are you guys related? Mr. D blinked a few times before laughing. Well, I can honestly say that I have never been to your world that Chiron told me you were from. Now, I have heard about it from the other gods. Now, if I ever get away from this place, I might just take a look. Oh, and to answer your question, no, I am not related to her. Oh, Naruto said and then turned to Grover. So Grover, how are you feeling? Better, but it still sucks that I was of no use. I am sure you will get another chance at that in the future. Naruto replied with a smile. It was freaking infectious. A while later, Percy had woken up and Grover took him aside to talk a bit. When they got back, that is when things got interesting. Percy looked at the end of the pouch where everyone was and gasped. The man he thought was Mr. Brunner was there. Then he saw a fat man playing some game with him. There was the blonde-haired girl who had feed him the popcorn flavor pudding, leaning on the railing of the pouch, and finally there was Naruto watching the game the 2 men were playing. Mr. Brunner, Percy cried. The Latin teacher turned and smiled at him. His eyes had that mischievous glint they sometimes got in class when he pulled a pop quiz and made all the multiple choice answers B. "Ah, good, Percy," he said. "Now we have 4 for Pinnacle." He offered Percy a chair to the right of Mr. D, who looked at him with bloodshot eyes and heaved a great sigh. "Oh, I suppose I must say it. Welcome to Camp Half-Blood. There, now, don't expect me to be glad to see you." Naruto just chuckled at Mr. D's bluntness. Thanks." Percy scooted a little farther away from him because, if there was one thing he had learned from living with Gabe, it was how to tell when an adult has been hitting the happy juice. If Mr. D was a stranger to alcohol, he was a satyr. "Annabeth?" Mr. Brunner called to the blonde girl. She came forward and Mr. Brunner introduced them. "This young lady nursed you back to health, Percy. Annabeth, my dear, why don't you go check on Percy's bunk? We'll be putting him, along with Naruto, in cabin 11 for now." Annabeth said, "Sure, Chiron." While looking at the girl, Percy was checking her out, but not in a perverted way. He thought that her looks were like a typical California girl, but her eyes threw him off as they were gray. He then was wondering what she would say to him because of the fact that he and Naruto killed the Minotaur. He pictured it being, "You beat the Minotaur, or wow. You're so awesome. Like that would ever happen. You drool when you sleep." And with that, she left. He confused at first until he heard Naruto break out laughing. "Oh, man, I bet you thought she was going to say that you were awesome of something that. Aw, too bad for you. Wait, what about you? When did you wake up?" Percy shot back while Mr. D had a slight smirk on his face. "Remember, I am a fast healer. I woke up yesterday morning." Naruto spoke while Percy just shook his head, thinking that Naruto's healing was just out there to being with. "Anyway, you, work here, Mr. Brunner?" "Not Mr. Brunner, the ex, Mr. Brunner said. "I'm afraid that was a pseudonym. You may call me Chiron." "Okay." Totally confused, Percy looked at the director. "And Mr. D, does that stand for something?" Naruto smacked his head. He wondered if his friend had learned anything throughout this ordeal. Mr. D stopped shuffling the cards. He looked at Percy like he'd just belched loudly. "Young man, names are powerful things. You don't just go around using them for no reason." "Oh, right, sorry. I must say, Percy," Chiron broke in, "I'm glad to see you alive. It's been a long time since I've made a house call to a potential camper. I'd hate to think I've wasted my time." "House call?" "My year at Yancey Academy, to instruct you. We have satyrs at most schools, of course. Keeping a lookout. But Grover alerted me as soon as he met you. He sensed you were something special, so I decided to come upstate. I convinced the other Latin teacher to take a leave of absence. Then we had Naruto transfer in and I knew he was powerful like you as well. 2 demigods in one place in rare, so I am glad we got both you here safely." Percy tried to remember the beginning of the school year. It seemed like so long ago, but he did have a fuzzy memory of there being another Latin teacher his first week at Yancey. Then, without explanation, he had disappeared and Mr. Brunner had taken the class and then Naruto transferred in and then things were not that bad. "You came to Yancey just to teach me?" Percy asked. Chiron nodded. "Honestly, I wasn't sure about you at first. We contacted your mother, let her know we were keeping an eye on you in case you were ready for Camp Half-Blood. But you still had so much to learn. Nevertheless, you made it here alive, and that's always the first test." "Well, I had help from Naruto," Percy replied. "We know, and I am glad the both of you made it in peace," Chiron said. "Grover," Mr. D said impatiently, "are you playing or not?" "Yes, sir." Grover trembled as he took the 4th chair, though Percy couldn't figure out why he should be so afraid of a pudgy little man in a tiger print Hawaiian shirt. "You do know how to play Pinnacle?" Mr. D eyed him suspiciously. Of course he knew that Naruto didn't either and probably already beat him a few times. "I'm afraid not," he replied. "I'm afraid not, sir," Mr. D said. "Sir," Percy repeated. He liked the camp director less and less. "Well," Mr. D explained, "it is, along with gladiator fighting and Pac-Man, one of the greatest games ever invented by humans. I would expect all civilized young men to know the rules." "I'm sure the boy can learn," Chiron said. "Please," Percy said, "what is this place? What am I doing here?" "Mr. Brun, Chiron. Why would you go to Yancey Academy just to teach me?" Mr. D snorted. "I asked the same question." The camp director dealt the cards. Grover flinched every time one landed in his pile. Chiron smiled at me sympathetically, the way he used to in Latin class, as if to let me know that no matter what my average was, I was his star student. He expected me to have the right answer. "Percy," he said, "did your mother tell you nothing?" She said. He remembered her sad eyes, looking out over the sea. "She told me she was afraid to send me here, even though my father had wanted her to. She said that once I was here, I probably couldn't leave. She wanted to keep me close to her." "Typical," Mr. D said. "That's how they usually get killed." "Young man, are you bidding or not?" "What?" Percy asked. He explained, impatiently, how you bid in Pinnacle, and so Percy did. "I'm afraid there's too much to tell," Chiron said. "I'm afraid our usual orientation film won't be sufficient." "Orientation film?" Percy asked and then rounded on Naruto. "And you don't seem to be surprised by this stuff at all." Naruto shrugged and said, "Well, since I woke up earlier, I was told this already and I told them about the other world and they seemed to understand." Percy just blinked at him owlishly. "No," Chiron decided. "Well, Percy, you know your friend Grover is a satyr. You know," he pointed to the horn in the shoebox Percy was holding, "that you boys have killed the Minotaur. No small feat, either, lads. What you may not know is that great powers are at work in your life. Gods, the forces you call the Greek gods, are very much alive." Percy stared at the others around the table. He waited for somebody to yell, not. But all he got was Mr. D yelling, "Oh, a royal marriage. Trick, trick." He cackled as he tallied up his points and Naruto giving off a serious look, and he knew this was serious. "Mr. D," Grover asked timidly, "if you're not going to eat it, could I have your Diet Coke?" "Can, eh? Oh, all right. Yep, half goat, goats will eat anything." Naruto deadpanned at their satyr friend while he bit a huge shard out of the empty aluminum can and chewed it mournfully. "Wait," Percy told Chiron. "You're telling me there's such a thing as God?" "Well, now," Chiron said. "God, capital G, God. That's a different matter altogether. We shan't deal with the metaphysical." "Metaphysical? But you were just talking about." "Ah, gods, plural, as in, great beings that control the forces of nature and human endeavors. The immortal gods of Olympus." "That's a smaller matter." "Smaller? Yes, quite. The gods we discussed in Latin class." At this point Naruto intervened, seeing that his friend was having trouble coming to terms with this. "Percy, remember what I said about the bloodlines back home?" A nod. "Well, think that along with the Greek mythology we learned in class and we got something very power-living." Percy's eyes widened and said, "Zeus, Hera, Apollo. You mean them and that they are real?" That was when a thunder boomed. "Young man," said Mr. D, "I would really be less casual about throwing those names around, if I were you." "But they're stories," Percy said. "They're myths to explain lightning and the seasons and stuff. They're what people believed before there was science." "Science?" Mr. D scoffed. "And tell me, Perseus Jackson," he flinched when the man said Percy's real name, which he never told anybody. "What will people think of your science 2,000 years from now?" Mr. D continued. They will call it primitive mumbo-jumbo. That's what. Oh, I love mortals. They have absolutely no sense of perspective. They think they've come so far. And have they, Chiron? Look at this boy and tell me. Yeah man, we didn't have that luxury back home and we just played off the originators of the bloodlines to something godly." Naruto shrugged. "Percy," Chiron said, "you may choose to believe or not, but the fact is that immortal means immortal. Can you imagine that for a moment, never dying? Never fading? Existing, just as you are, for all time?" That was when he heard Naruto say that it would be lonely. "You mean, whether people believed in you or not," Percy said. "Exactly," Chiron agreed. "If you were a god, how would you like being called a myth, an old story to explain lightning? What if I told you, Perseus Jackson, that someday people would call you a myth, just created to explain how little boys can get over losing their mothers? I wouldn't like it, but I don't believe in gods," Percy replied, which made Naruto grimace. "Oh, you'd better," Mr. D murmured. "Before one of them incinerates you." Grover said, "Please, sir. He's just lost his mother. He's in shock. A lucky thing, too," Mr. D grumbled, playing a card. "Bad enough I'm confined to this job, working with boys who don't even believe." He waved his hand and a goblet appeared on the table, as if the sunlight had bent, momentarily, and woven the air into glass. The goblet filled itself with red wine. Mr. D, Chiron warned, your restrictions. Mr. D looked at the wine and feigned surprise. Dear me. He looked at the sky and yelled, old habits. Sorry. More thunder. Naruto chuckled and said, yep, Tsunade would really love you. That made Mr. D chuckle and waved his hand again, and the wineglass changed into a fresh can of Diet Coke. He sighed unhappily, popped the top of the soda, and went back to his card game. Chiron winked. Mr. D offended his father a while back, took a fancy to a wood nymph who had been declared off limits. Naruto just gave Chiron an odd look before shaking his head. A wood nymph, Percy repeated, staring at the Diet Coke can like it was from outer space. Yes, Mr. D confessed. Father loves to punish me. The first time, prohibition. Ghastly. Absolutely horrid 10 years. The second time, well, she really was pretty, and I couldn't stay away. The second time, he sent me here. Half-Blood Hill. Summer camp for brats like you. Be a better influence, he told me. Work with youths rather than tearing them down. Huh. Absolutely unfair. Mr. D sounded about 6 years old, like a pouting little kid. I am sure you'll get used to it, eventually. Naruto replied. D Immortales, Chiron, Mr. D said. I thought you taught this boy the basics. My father is Zeus, of course. Like Naruto before, Percy went through the D name he had learned about and found one that matched Mr. D, though he was not as subtle like his friend. You're Dionysus, he said. The god of wine. Mr. D rolled his eyes. What do they say, these days, Grover? Do the children say, well, duh. Yes, Mr. D. Had that coming. Naruto commented with a smirk. Shut it, Percy replied. Then, well, duh. Percy Jackson. Did you think I was Aphrodite, perhaps? Mr. D asked, irritated while Naruto thought that was an odd comparison. You're a god. Yes, child. A god. You. Percy asked again, unable to comprehend it. Mr. D turned to look at Percy straight on, and he saw a kind of purplish fire in his eyes. A hint that this whiny, plump little man was only showing me the tiniest bit of his true nature. He saw visions of grapevines choking unbelievers to death, drunken warriors insane with battle lust, sailors screaming as their hands turned to flippers, their faces elongating into dolphin snouts. Percy knew that if he pushed him, Mr. D would show him worse things. He would plant a disease in his brain that would leave him wearing a straitjacket in a rubber room for the rest of his life. That an over-the-top way to get the point across, but it worked. Would you like to test me, child? He said quietly. No, sir. The fire died a little. He turned back to his card game. I believe I win. Not quite, Mr. D, Chiron said. He set down a straight, tallied the points, and said, the game goes to me. Percy thought Mr. D was going to vaporize Chiron right out of his wheelchair, but he just sighed through his nose, as if he were used to being beaten by the Latin teacher. He got up, and Grover rose, too. I'm tired, Mr. D said. I believe I'll take a nap before the sing-along tonight. But first, Grover, we need to talk, again, about your less-than-perfect performance on this assignment. Grover's face beaded with sweat. Why yes, sir. Mr. D turned to Percy. Cabin 11, Percy Jackson. And mind your manners. Take Naruto with you since he will be going as well. He swept into the farmhouse, Grover following miserably. Will Grover be okay? Percy asked Chiron. Chiron nodded, though he looked a bit troubled. Old Dionysus isn't really mad. He just hates his job. He's been, grounded, I guess you would say, and he can't stand waiting another century before he's allowed to go back to Olympus. Mount Olympus, Percy said. You're telling me there really is a palace there? Well now, there's Mount Olympus in Greece. And then there's the home of the gods, the convergence point of their powers, which did indeed used to be on Mount Olympus. It's still called Mount Olympus, out of respect to the old ways, but the palace moves, Percy, just as the gods do. You mean the Greek gods are here? Like, in America? Well, certainly. The gods move with the heart of the West. The what? Percy. Naruto spoke up again. The West means where the major power is in the world. You see, it has moved from Greece, which was at one point, the point of power in the world. Now it is here in America. Chiron gave Naruto a grateful look because he really didn't want to explain it right now. Who are you, Chiron? Who am I? Percy asked, not really taking in everything and understanding it. Who are you? He mused while he started to get out of his chair, which would seem impossible in Percy's mind. Well, that's the question we all want answered, isn't it? But for now, we should get you a bunk in cabin 11. There will be new friends to meet. And plenty of time for lessons tomorrow. Besides, there will be s'mores at the campfire tonight, and I simply adore chocolate. And then he did rise from his wheelchair. But there was something odd about the way he did it. His blanket fell away from his legs, but the legs didn't move. His waist kept getting longer, rising above his belt. At first, Percy thought he was wearing very long, white velvet underwear, but as he kept rising out of the chair, taller than any man, I realized that the velvet underwear wasn't underwear. It was the front of an animal, muscle and sinew under coarse white fur. And the wheelchair wasn't a chair. It was some kind of container, an enormous box on wheels, and it must have been magic, because there's no way it could have held all of him. A leg came out, long and knobby-kneed, with a huge polished hoof. Then another front leg, then hindquarters, and then the box was empty, nothing but a metal shell with a couple of fake human legs attached. Percy stared at the horse who had just sprung from the wheelchair, a huge white stallion. But where its neck should be was the upper body of their Latin teacher, smoothly grafted to the horse's trunk. What a relief, the centaur said. I'd been cooped up in there so long, my fetlocks had fallen asleep. Now, come, Percy Jackson, Naruto Uzumaki. Let's meet the other campers. Percy just nodded and he and Naruto followed. Naruto leaned over and said, told you. Chiron has a real horse's ass. After Percy got over his shock, he ran to Chiron's side along with Naruto, because hey, you can never trust a horse's backside, especially in Amish country. Anyway, they started the tour of the camp. They passed the volleyball pit. Several of the campers nudged each other. One pointed to the Minotaur horned Percy was carrying in Naruto. Another said, it's them. Naruto chuckled as he heard them trying to figure out how his did the log thing as they put it. Percy gave Naruto a look and smirked. You just had to show off, huh? Naturally. Naruto smirked. As they walked, that saw everyone doing activities and satyrs joining them in their activities with orange camp half-blood shirts and nothing else. Hey, Percy said aloud, what is up there? He said, pointing the fourth story of the big house that they just left. Chiron looked to where Percy was pointing and his smile faded, making Naruto raise an eyebrow. Just the attic. Somebody lives there? No, he said with finality. Not a single living thing. Naruto looked at the window to the attic oddly and thought, nothing living, but what if something not entirely living, nah. Naruto turned his head just as a curtain moved and Percy was the only one who saw it. Come along boys, Chiron said, his light-hearted tone now a little forced. Lots to see. They walked through the strawberry fields, where campers were picking bushels of berries while a satyr played a tune on a reed pipe. I wonder how hard it is to learn how to play one. Naruto idly thought, not listening to Chiron tell them that these strawberries pay for the camp's expenses. Percy did look a little sad though, and Naruto somehow knew that he was wondering if Grover was okay. He was getting chewed out by a god though, so who knows. Grover won't get in too much trouble, will he? Percy asked Chiron. I mean, he was a good protector. Really? Chiron sighed. He shed his tweed jacket and draped it over his horse's back like a saddle. Grover has big dreams, Percy. Perhaps bigger than are reasonable. To reach his goal, he must first demonstrate great courage by succeeding as a keeper, finding a new camper and bringing him safely to Half-Blood Hill. But he did that, Percy exclaimed. Yeah, 2 campers nonetheless. Naruto grumbled. Now he was worried about their friend as well. I might agree with you, Chiron said. But it is not my place to judge. Dionysus and the Council of Cloven Elders must decide. I'm afraid they might not see this assignment as a success. After all, Grover lost you too in New York. Then there's the unfortunate fate of your mother. And the fact that Grover was unconscious when Naruto brought him over the property line. The council might question whether this shows any courage on Grover's part. He helped get us here, so I think that is good enough. Even he is a bit weak, he is still a good guy. Naruto replied. He'll get a second chance, won't he? Percy asked. Chiron winced. I'm afraid that was Grover's second chance, Percy. The council was not anxious to give him another, either, after what happened the first time, 5 years ago. Olympus knows, I advised him to wait longer before trying again. He's still so small for his age. 5 years? Oh, that must mean that he was with Talia since she mentioned him. Pondered Naruto. How old is he? Oh, 28. What? And he's in 6th grade? Well hey, I am 13 and I was in 6th grade too. Naruto said. Yeah but, 28. And besides, no one would think much of that Naruto. Percy panicked as he looked back to Chiron. Satyrs mature half as fast as humans, Percy. Grover has been the equivalent of a middle school student for the past 6 years. That's horrible, Percy said while Naruto shivered. Quite, Chiron agreed. At any rate, Grover is a late bloomer, even by satyr standards, and not yet very accomplished at woodland magic. Alas, he was anxious to pursue his dream. Perhaps now he will find some other career. That's not fair, Percy said. What happened the first time? Was it really so bad? Chiron looked away quickly. Let's move along, shall we? The boys were not convinced but didn't want to anger the horseman. Chiron, Percy said, if the gods and Olympus and all that are real. Yes, child? Does that mean the underworld is real, too? Chiron's expression darkened and he shot his eyes over to Naruto for a split second but Naruto caught it. Yes, child. He paused, as if choosing his words carefully. There is a place where spirits go after death. But for now, until we know more, I would urge you to put that out of your mind. What do you mean, until we know more? Come, Percy, let's see the woods. They wanted to know what he was talking about but when they reached the edge of the forest that thought left them. Once they saw it, they thought the forest was huge. It took up at least a quarter of the valley, with trees so tall and thick, you could imagine nobody had been in there since the Native Americans. Naruto smiled a sad smile and said, feels like home. Percy looked at him and put a hand on his shoulder. Naruto had told him a lot of the world he used to live in. He didn't believe it at first because it sounded weird but so were his experiences so he just took it in stride. Chiron said interrupting them, the woods are stocked, if you care to try your luck, but go armed. Oh that sounds nice. Naruto deadpanned. Sounds just like the forest of death with the way you put it. Stocked with what? Percy asked, a little freaked out now. Armed with what? You'll see. Capture the flag is Friday night. Do you have your own sword and shield? My own. No, Chiron said. I don't suppose you do. I think a size 5 will do. I'll visit the armory later. He then looked at Naruto's wristband with the fox and dragon charms. He knew Naruto would be alright, but at the moment, he was more worried about Percy. Sword and spear fights? Percy asked. Cabin challenges and all that, he explained. Not lethal. Usually. Oh, yes, and there's the mess hall. Chiron pointed to an outdoor pavilion framed in white Grecian columns on a hill overlooking the sea. There were a dozen stone picnic tables. No roof. No walls. Not bad. Naruto smirked as he observed it, really wanting to eat now. What do you do when it rains? Percy asked with a confused face. Chiron looked at him as if he had gone a little weird. We still have to eat, don't we? He then sighed and decided to drop the subject. Finally, they reached the cabins that Naruto had seen earlier. The collection of 12 cabins was very odd to Percy but Naruto didn't seem as fazed. He guessed the blonde and seen weirder things, which was very possible with all those stories Naruto had told him. Percy looked back at the building to get a better outlook at what was what. They were arranged in a U, with 2 at the base and 5 in a row on either side. Except for the fact that each had a large brass number above the door with odds on the left side. Evens on the right, they looked absolutely nothing alike. Number 9 had smokestacks, like a tiny factory. Number 4 had tomato vines on the walls and a roof made out of real grass. 7 seemed to be made of solid gold, which gleamed so much in the sunlight it was almost impossible to look at. They all faced a commons area about the size of a soccer field, dotted with Greek statues, fountains, flower beds, and a couple of basketball hoops, which Percy smirked at. Now that was something he could do. In the center of the field was a huge stone-lined fire pit. Even though it was a warm afternoon, the hearth smoldered. A girl about 9 years old was tending the flames, poking the coals with a stick. Naruto found this odd but he did find that the girl extruded a lot of power. She was someone that you did not mess with, that was for sure. Percy looked to the huge mausoleum-like cabins at the bend of the U and he instantly knew who they were for. Zeus and Hera? Correct, Chiron said. Their cabins look empty. Several of the cabins are. That's true, but no one ever stays in those 2. Chiron explained. Troublesome. Naruto muttered Shikamaru's famous saying. Sounds like a real waste to me. He then noticed that Percy was staring at a long, low, and solid cabin that seemed to be extruding power as well. The outer walls were of rough gray stone studded with pieces of seashell and coral, as if the slabs had been hewn straight from the bottom of the ocean floor. Curious, Percy tried to take a peek inside. Chiron said, "Oh, I wouldn't do that." But Percy had already looked in and was a little sad at how sad it looked inside. "Come on, Percy," Chiron said as he led them away from the cabin. "I swear this guy knows something. What a drag, I am sounding more and more like Shikamaru," ranted Naruto in his head. Now, most of the other cabins, however, had a lot of kids for their cabins. Naruto held in a chuckle. Man, these gods but be real horny. Number 5 was bright red, which did not have that great of a paint job. It was as if the color had been splashed on with buckets and fists. The roof was lined with barbed wire. A stuffed wild boar's head hung over the doorway, and its eyes seemed to follow all that looked at it. Inside they could see a bunch of mean-looking kids, both girls and boys, arm wrestling and arguing with each other while rock music blared. The loudest was a girl maybe 13 or 14. She wore a size XXXL Camp Half-Blood t-shirt under a camouflage jacket. She zeroed in on me and gave me an evil sneer. She reminded me of Nancy Bobofit, though the camper girl was much bigger and tougher looking, and her hair was long and stringy, and brown instead of red. Naruto smirked as he recognized her. Her cabin seemed really fun. Percy then noticed something. "Hey, where are all the other centaurs?" "No," said Chiron sadly. "My kinsmen are a wild and barbaric folk, I'm afraid. You might encounter them in the wilderness, or at major sporting events. But you won't see any here." Naruto gave the man a smirk. "Oh, so they are the guys who love to party, eh? Now they are some people I want to meet." Chiron put a smirk and said, "I am not sure about that, Naruto. They take it to the extreme and they do that every day. So what you are saying is that they are the ones who invented tailgate parties and frat parties?" Naruto deadpanned and Chiron just nodded. "Oh boy, you said your name was Chiron." Percy interrupted, "Are you really?" He smiled down at the boy. "The Chiron from the stories? Trainer of Hercules and all that?" "Yes, Percy, I am. But, shouldn't you be dead?" Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. Chiron paused, as if the question intrigued him. "I honestly don't know about should be. The truth is, I can't be dead. You see, eons ago the gods granted my wish. I could continue the work I loved. I could be a teacher of heroes as long as humanity needed me. I gained much from that wish, and I gave up much. But I'm still here, so I can only assume I'm still needed. Being a teacher for all time, man, that sounds boring." Naruto said. No, Chiron said. "Horribly depressing, at times, but never boring." "Why depressing?" Percy asked. "I can only imagine why." Naruto said, "Being immortal mean you see all those that you have learned to love die. I am not sure if I could do that." "Oh, look," he said. "Annabeth is waiting for us." Chiron suddenly said, as if not hearing the question. When they reached the blonde girl, it was at cabin 11. The girl was reading a book that was not even in English. The thing was in Greek and it seemed to be about Greek architecture. "Foon. Annabeth," Chiron said, "I have master's archery class at noon. Would you take these two from here?" "Yes, sir." "Cabin 11, Chiron told them, gesturing toward the doorway. "Make yourself at home." Out of all the cabins, 11 looked the most like a regular old summer camp cabin, with the emphasis on old. The threshold was worn down, the brown paint peeling. Over the doorway was one of those doctor's symbols, a winged pole with 2 snakes wrapped around it. Looking inside, Naruto's sweat dropped at what he saw. It was packed with people, both boys and girls, way more than the number of bunk beds. Sleeping bags were spread all over on the floor. "Oh, crap, this is worse than the orphanage back home, or not?" he thought as he looked at them all. They were all in good spirits. He did notice that when they saw Chiron, they stood and bowed to the man. Yet another sign that they guy was important. First was the immortality and not the show of respect. "Well, then," Chiron said. "Good luck, Percy. I'll see you at dinner." He then galloped away toward the archery range. Turning back to the group behind them, they noticed that all the kids were sizing up the two of them. Great, now they needed to make a good impression. So naturally Percy tripped coming in the door and made a total fool of myself. There were some snickers from the campers, but none of them said anything. Naruto just walked in nonchalantly, which seemed to calm Percy down a bit. Annabeth announced, "Percy Jackson, Naruto Uzumaki, meet cabin 11. Regular or undetermined? Somebody asked. Guessing as how we just got here, I would say undetermined. Naruto deadpanned and there was a groan of annoyance from everyone in the cabin. A guy who was a little older than the rest came forward. Now, campers. That's what we're here for. Welcome, Percy, Naruto. You can have that spot on the floor, right over there. It is pretty big so the two of you will fit for now. The guy was about 19, and he looked pretty cool. He was tall and muscular, with short cropped hair and a friendly smile. He wore an orange tank top, cutoffs, sandals, and a leather necklace with 5 different colored clay beads. The only thing unsettling about his appearance was a thick white scar that ran from just beneath his right eye to his jaw, like an old knife slash. Oh ho, now this guy seems like fighter. Naruto smirked at the thought. This place was awesome. This is Luke, Annabeth said, and her voice sounded different somehow. They looked at her and it looked like she just got out of a blush. Naruto raised an eyebrow. It seemed that she was into old guys. He smirked, he could tease her later. His expression hardened when she them looking, but for Naruto, he already had some pranking material. He's your counselor for now. For now? Percy asked. You're undetermined, Luke explained patiently. They don't know what cabin to put you in, so you're here. Cabin 11 takes all newcomers, all visitors. Naturally, we would. Hermes, our patron, is the god of travelers. Hey, the god of these, now that is a guy that sounds fun. Naruto said, getting a few chuckles from the other campers. He decided to give back Luke's wallet. Here you go man. Wah, Luke said a little surprised. How and when? Oh, just now and I am a ninja, I am do that easily. Naruto said, getting a few shocked looks. Anyway, Percy interrupted, already used to Naruto's antics. How long are we going to be here? Good question, Luke said. Until you're determined. How long will that take? The campers all laughed. I'm getting the feeling that take a long time. Naruto's sweat dropped. What do we got to do? Prove ourselves. Come on, Annabeth told me. I'll show you the volleyball court. I've already seen it, Percy replied. Come on. She grabbed his wrist and dragged him outside. Percy could hear the kids of cabin 11 laughing behind him. Naruto shook his head. This girl was odd but she seemed fun to him. He chuckled to himself. Could Percy already have a girlfriend and already be whipped? Nah, he just got here after all. When we were a few feet away, Annabeth said, Jackson, you have to do better than that. What? She rolled her eyes and mumbled under her breath. I can't believe I thought you were the one. What's your problem? Naruto grimaced as he heard the anger in his friend's voice. All I know is, I kill some bull guy and that was with the help of Naruto. We just kill some odd bull freak. Don't talk like that, Annabeth told him. You know how many kids at this camp wish they'd had your chance? To get killed? Percy asked with a confused look. To fight the Minotaur. What do you think we train for? The girl yelled. Then you guys must train your asses off here. The Minotaur from those old stories was a pain in the ass to kill. I had to weaken with a Rasengan. Naruto complained. A what? Annabeth asked. Naruto just sighed as he created a swirling energy that disappeared after a few seconds, but those watching them had seen it and wondered what it could do. Wait, Theseus killed him in the labyrinth. So, Percy trailed off. Monsters don't die, Percy. They can be killed, but they don't die. Oh, thanks. That clears it up. They don't have souls, like you and me. You can dispel them for a while, maybe even for a whole lifetime if you're lucky. But they are primal forces. Chiron calls them archetypes. Eventually, they reform. Oh, that's nice. Naruto said as he smacked his head. You mean if we killed one, accidentally, with a sword? The fur. I mean, your math teacher. That's right. She's still out there. You just made her very, very mad. Annabeth informed him. How did you know about Mrs. Dodds? You talk in your sleep. You almost called her something. A fury? They're Hades' torturers, right? Naruto asked while Percy nodded. Annabeth glanced nervously at the ground, as if she expected it to open up and swallow her. You shouldn't call them by name, even here. We call them the kindly ones, if we have to speak of them at all. Man, you guys take fear to the extreme. Sure she was creepy but, come on. They can't be that bad. Naruto replied. Annabeth just gave him a look. Look, is there anything we can say without it thundering? Percy whined. That even sounded sad to him. Why'd I have to stay in cabin 11, anyway? Why is everybody so crowded together? There are plenty of empty bunks right over there. He said, pointing to a few other cabins. You don't just choose a cabin, Percy. It depends on who your parents are. Or, your parent. Annabeth informed him. He seemed to get it, maybe. My mom is Sally Jackson, he said. She works at the candy store in Grand Central Station. At least, she used to. Percy, I think she means your dad. Naruto commented. But he's dead. I never knew him, Percy said. Annabeth sighed. Clearly, she'd had this conversation before with other kids. Your father's not dead, Percy. I'm getting the feeling that he is a god, right? Naruto deadpanned. What? Percy said, surprised. How else would you be allowed here? Naruto shrugged. What about you? Percy pointed to Naruto. Oh, I am not sure, but whoever my dad was, he said to just wait until the right time. Besides, you know that I am an orphan, so I am used to waiting around like this. Oh, right, Percy said, a little embarrassed. But, how do I know I am a demigod as they are called? Usually demigods are diagnosed with dyslexia and probably ADHD, too. Annabeth said. Dyslexia is where you mix up word and stuff, right? Percy asked. Hey, you think you got it bad, what about me? I know 3 languages now. Naruto said. English, Japanese, and now this Greek stuff. So, you could read at the museum as well? Yep, Naruto said. Okay, so how does ADHD help? Simple, they're your battle reflexes. Annabeth stated. It is a good thing you had that bows. If you didn't, you would not have survived the Minotaur, much less eaten the ambrosia and nectar. Huh? Percy, that stuff you drank that made you feel better. Naruto said. For me, that stuff tasted like Ichiraku's ramen. He had anime tears in his eyes, making Percy chuckle to himself. His friend had the weirdest tastes. My mom's cookies, Percy said sadly. Well, those are the signs, you two are defiantly demigods. Annabeth said, but before she could say anything else, she was interrupted by someone very familiar to her and Naruto. Well, a newbie, a husky voice said. Percy looked over to the big girl he saw in the Aries cabin, come sauntering toward them. She had 3 other girls behind her, all big and ugly and mean looking like her, all wearing camo jackets. He noticed that she was talking to him, but also that she was stealing glances at his blonde-haired friend. Oh no. Why does he attract all the tough girls? First it was Nancy Bobofit and now this girl. Clarice, Annabeth sighed, also noticing the looks. Why don't you go polish your spear or something? Sure, Miss Princess, the big girl said. So I can run you through with it Friday night. Eres Korakas, Annabeth said, which was Greek for, go to the crows. Though the boys had a feeling it was a worse curse than it sounded. You don't stand a chance. We'll pulverize you, Clarice said. He then looked at Naruto and had a slight pink tint to her cheeks. Hey Naruto, who is the runt with you? Oh, this is my friend Percy Jackson. Yes, and I am sure Naruto already knows this, but this is Clarice, daughter of Ares, god of war. Annabeth mumbled, finding it odd that Clarice could be in love. The war god? Percy said with both eyebrows raised. Clarice sneered and held up Percy by the collar. You got a problem with that? No, Percy said, recovering his wits. It explains the bad smell. Naruto smacked his head and mumbled something about his friend getting a spine at the worst times. Clarice growled. We got an initiation ceremony for newbies, Prissy. Percy. Whatever. Come on, I'll show you. Clarice said as he dragged the boy to the bathrooms. Clarice, Annabeth tried to say. Stay out of it, wise girl. Clarice growled as she and the others walked away. Naruto. Annabeth rounded on her fellow blonde. You have to help him. Sighing, Naruto replied, I know I should, but I can't be the one to fight all his battles. He then grabbed the horn Percy dropped. They walked to the door while saying this, and he was sure Percy heard him. Let's see if you can regain some of that strength. Annabeth and Naruto watched at the door as Clarice and her friends mocked Percy. As they began to push Percy's head toward the toilet, Naruto felt that power it felt back at the museum. Oh, this is going to be messy for them. Huh? Annabeth asked. Then, one of the toilets shot out water at Clarice, and as her friends tried to help her, the other toilets exploded, blasting water all over the place and on Annabeth and Naruto. Didn't expect that, he said, spitting out water. Percy walked over to them with a shocked expression, but he was laughing in the inside at how funny the two looked. Annabeth said, How did you? I don't know. Percy shrugged. Well, Percy, you just gave the name Waterboy a whole new meaning. Naruto said, which actually got a laugh from Annabeth. They walked to the door. Outside, Clarice and her friends were sprawled in the mud, and a bunch of other campers had gathered around to gawk. Clarice's hair was flattened across her face. Her camouflage jacket was sopping and she smelled like sewage. She gave me a look of absolute hatred. "You are dead, new boy. You are totally dead." However, it was quickly gone because Naruto had decided to help out, but not in the way anyone expected. He created a shadow clone to help them out. Wind style. Great breakthrough. All the water and mud that was on them was blown away and into the nearby forest. The clone then disappeared. Though, the damage had been already done. Everyone was gawking at Naruto now. He walked over to Clarice and helped her up. "Don't be too hard on him next time." He smirked and then winked. He then shined back to Percy and Annabeth, leaving more shocked people to look at him. He never saw the full-blown blush on her face. "Show off." Percy smirked. "Oh, I do over to it, but I could not help it." Naruto shrugged. He then noticed Annabeth looking from Percy to Naruto. What are you thinking?" "I'm thinking," she said, "that I want the two of you on my team for Capture the Flag." That's all for now. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments.